I'm going to call this March 7th, 2022 meeting of the Mojave County Board of Supervisors to order. If you'll please join me in an invocation by Pastor John, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Lord, we come before you today, ask for wisdom and guidance, simplicity, and make decisions after this meeting on behalf of the pray that you would wisdom, hear decisions to be made. Lord, I ask that you would give us insight and wisdom beyond our years. Help us to do what glorifies you. Help us to do what's right in your eyes of all. And we ask, Lord, for discretion, and we ask, Lord, for your counsel during this time. And we ask this all in the name of Jesus, our Lord and Savior. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The Board of Supervisors, by motion, may recess into executive session to receive legal advice from the board's attorney on any item contained in this agenda pursuant to ARS 38-431.03, A3, 4, and 7. A motion and action to call for an executive session to be held March 21st, 2022 at 9 a.m. for discussion and consultation with legal counsel in accordance with ARS 431.03A, 3, 4, and 7 to discuss items noticed on the agenda.
So made.
Second.
For that motion, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes appear to have it. Do have it. So ordered. Let's see. Committee reports. Supervisor Bishop.
Thank you, Chairman Gold. Let me see, February 24th, I attended the Workforce Development Board meeting by Zoom while traveling to Phoenix so that I could attend the Arizona Commerce Authority meeting later that afternoon. And then on the 25th, I also chaired the CSA Legislative Policy Committee meeting in Phoenix, as well as attending the ACO Board of Directors meeting also that same day. And then March 5th, I chaired the County Supervisors Association Legislative Policy Committee in Phoenix. And that same afternoon, I attended the Arizona ACJC Joint Executive Legislative Meeting in Phoenix. So all these meetings were around what's going on at the state capitol. The legislative session is now in week 9, 54 days into the session with 1,738 bills posted, of which only 3 have passed. So the next weeks are going to be a lot of testimony down at the state capitol, and Supervisor Angus is our legislative liaison, and she will give a report on that. So other than that, there was a lot of discussion about the governor's announcement that he has plans to put together an Arizona Water Authority. That was announced last week, and he's planning on creating a new entity, and the authority will be tasked with researching, identifying, and developing long-term water sources for the state of Arizona. They're currently drafting legislation that would give the Arizona Water Authority the power to acquire their own water and sell water on behalf of the state, store water and acquire, hold, assign, otherwise dispose of storage credits. They could plan, construct, and acquire water-related water facilities. They could own but not operate water-related facilities and infrastructure within the state. They could engage in private-public partnerships, apply for and hold permits. They could provide loans, grants, and other financial assistance and issue revenue bonds, as well as negotiate agreements and hire the necessary staff. So it looks like the governor is really taking the drought situation and trying to do something new and big, but this still has to go through the legislation and be passed legislatively. So 2 bills have been introduced, and there may be a special session on water. So this is just something to keep an eye on and watch, and maybe Supervisor Lingenfelter can go into that a little bit as well. That's my report.
Thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor Angus.
Thank you. Just like what Supervisor Bishop said, lots of bills. I'm going to tell you some really, really bad bills that we're fighting. Some good bills. The election integrity bills that are going through are being tweaked, which is the process. Sometimes we have to weigh in on maybe unintended consequences and price to the county. So that's being worked on. I believe in the next few weeks, we will be seeing some of those go through, but not without much opposition from the other party who thinks that we're all don't want people to vote, which is absurd. We have some salary bills for law enforcement, which are pretty controversial as well. They're working with that. Again, we have CSA is sort of our lobbyist, and they take the information that we give, the votes we take, and take that to the legislators to make sure that our voices are heard. And there's also a process for you guys. And if you if you want to know how to weigh in on bills and see what's going on, you can contact me at my office, or probably any of your supervisors, and they'll be able to tell you how to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Angus. Supervisor Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. John Sweat, he's the project manager for the Lower Colorado River Multi-Species Organization, has been requested to have consultation with U.S. Fish and Wildlife. That's in accordance with the LCR MSCP implementing agreement. The Bureau of Reclamation is notifying the LCR MSCP Steering Committee and permittees that Endangered Species Act Section 7 consultation has been requested to be initiated with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to provide coverage for flow restrictions and reductions to 1.574 million acre feet between Hoover Dam and Parker Dam. Permittees are considered applicants in this consultation, and members from each state participating group have been part of this process. The Section 7 consultation is needed to facilitate important water conservation actions that are designed to minimize the risk of the ongoing historic drought in the Colorado River Basin, causing Lake Mead to decline to levels that would significantly threaten downstream water deliveries to water users in Arizona, California, Nevada, and the Republic of Mexico. Precipitous decline in Lake Mead elevation could also adversely impact species presented in the Lake Mead and the downstream riparian areas. That's all, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor Lingenfelter.
Thank you, Chairman Gould. There are currently a number of water bills working their way through the legislature right now. House Bill 2055 is the Harquahala non-expansion area groundwater transportation that was introduced by Gail Griffin. Allows for the transfer of water from Harquahala to other parts of the state through the CAP canal. Previously, such transfers were prohibited unless they were transferred to or by a local government. That passed out of the House on the 23rd of last month by a vote of 32 to 26. House Bill 2511, subsequent irrigation non-expansion areas procedures, that was introduced by our own Leo Biasucci. That bill would have changed the criteria for the Department of Water Resources Director to create an INA, an irrigation non-expansion area, to now say reasonably safe supply for irrigation, defined of the cultivated lands in the area at the reasonable projected rates of withdrawal rather than the current rates of withdrawal. This could be legislation to address the expansion of non-exempt wells in the Wallapai Valley Basin, which I'm not sure if anybody knows, but since 2012 to now, it's gone from a little over 97 wells to over 242 non-exempt wells in the Wallapai Valley Basin. This bill did not receive a hearing in the House Natural Resources, Energy, and Water Committee and is not moving forward this legislative session. House Bill 2512, Colorado River Water Local Communities, was introduced by our own Representative Cobb. would prohibit fourth priority water transfers away from the river for the 164,000 acre feet of Colorado River water for the Colorado River communities. The bill was not heard in committee. COB is working to get this language amended on a bill in the Senate Natural Resources, Energy, and Water Committee currently. House Bill 2661, Rural Management Areas, Water, introduced by Representative Cobb. For the fourth year in a row, this bill again did not receive a hearing because the chair of the House Natural Resources, Energy, and Water Committee did not give it a hearing. COB is making efforts to find opportunities to include this bill language in legislation this session. House Bill 2725, Senate Bill 1611, Arizona Water Authority. I'll try not to repeat much of what Supervisor Bishop has already mentioned. It was introduced by Griffin and Kerr. This bill is the governor's major water package of the session. Sets up a new government agency with two funds under its purview. The first would be a water supply development fund. $200 million would be allocated to a fund where $2 million is available per loan and $250,000 is available for grants on water projects. Long-term water augmentation fund, unspecified amount of money would be allocated to augmenting water in this state. 75% of the funds must be used for water augmentation from outside of the state of Arizona. Nothing in this proposal helps aquifers in rural Arizona at this time, however, and doesn't aid in situations for local governments who lack resources. There will likely be a special session, as was already mentioned in the legislature, to pursue this legislation, but they are giving stakeholders time to review the proposal. So it's definitely something that's we're going to be monitoring and watching. And House Bill 2836, interim groundwater review areas. This was originally introduced by Gail Griffin in the House. This bill was amended on the floor of the House to change the program to a temporary irrigation non-expansion area that would sunset after a period of time. Representative Cobb offered a hostile amendment on this bill. The amendment was her rural management area bill, House Bill 2661. Representative Griffin indicated the amendment was hostile and asked for opposition. Representative Cobb then asked for a roll call vote on the amendment, and she was successful in getting it passed 31-24. The RMA amendment was added to the temporary INA bill, and Representative Griffin asked for the bill to be held. This was a show of force from Representative Cobb and her effort to ensure the legislature understands we need to talk about rural management areas and fourth priority water in this year's election cycle. So we definitely want to thank Representative Cobb for taking a stand. It remains unclear, or rather clear, that the priority legislation this year will be both the governor's introduced Arizona Water Authority and the Harquahala bill. However, in a legislature with one vote majority in both chambers, any legislator could use their leverage in ensuring the passage of water legislation to secure the future of rural Mojave County. The only other things I have to report: tomorrow we will be holding our next meeting of the Mojave County Water Authority. That's being held tomorrow in Kingman, 11 o'clock at the Danbar Steakhouse. And we will also be having the Arizona Republic coming up tomorrow to Kingman to see firsthand what's going on in our region with the non-exempt wells in the Wallapai Basin and really why the rural management area is needed as a balancing tool for everybody that needs water. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. That was a Griffith bill that the amendment was put on by Cobb?
It was, yes, House Bill 2836, interim groundwater review areas, originally introduced by Griffin. So that bill is currently held and we'll see what happens.
Thank you, sir. County Manager report.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairman and board members. I have a couple of items. Starting with this, annually the City of Kingman celebrates a Women Making History event during the National Women History Month. And this year, during the 38th annual, the 38th year of honoring Kingman area women, 4 county employees out of the 16 ladies were honored, and they are Melissa Palmer, honored for her contribution to the health and medical profession. Megan McCoy, Judge Megan McCoy, honored for her public service. Jody Shanneman, honored for her professional service. And Sue Ann Mello, honored for her public service. I just wanted you to know, I wanted you to also know that Mojave County is very grateful for these ladies' service. And I personally am proud to be associated with these great ladies. Moving on, Mojave County's South Mojave Valley Library is moving. The current landlord requested the move some months ago due to the school expansion at the facility that they share. The new site is more suitable. It's a bit smaller, and it's really what they need. What they had in the way of space was larger than what they needed, and this will cost them less, so it's a cost saving. The move will occur and will be complete by the end of this month, and it will be ahead of schedule. Lastly, community services will be co-locating with the Department of Economic Security, DES, in Lake Havasu City, and they will be vacating the space they currently occupy in the county building at 2001 College Drive. The purpose really of the move is to have a one-stop shop to better serve the clients and the residents of the county who need those services. So with that in mind and in consultation with Chairman Gould and Assessors Kinch, we are canceling 2 solicitations that are out there today to remodel the facility, the buildings, knowing that minimal improvements will be needed for the assessors and District 5 office to occupy the vacated space. Overall, we anticipate that this move will save the county more than $100,000. So I just wanted to share that with you. Be happy to answer any questions. Thank you, Chairman.
Questions for the county manager? Thank you, sir. Approval of the February 7th, 2022 Board of Supervisor meeting. Minutes.
Motion to approve.
Second.
For that motion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes appear to have it. Do have it. So ordered. Call to the public. Brian Ware.
Place this up here. Let me see. Good morning. My name is Brian Ware, property number 123-03070. Dear Supervisors, County Manager, County Attorney, and Department Directors, I would like to bring your attention to a letter addressed to the Santa Fe Ranch POA dated October 6, 2021 from Paul Boffman, Flood Control Engineer. In the letter, it clearly states to fully correct the violation. I bring this to your attention with a passion for truth and accountability today because on October 18th and November 15th, 2021, we had the sitting supervisor, the department director, the Santa Fe POA president, and the POA property manager stating on the record that Santa Fe Ranch POA was never in violation. It's blatantly apparent that either all were misinformed or were being dishonest in the representation of the facts and evidence. Though you may feel an apology is not warranted, I wanted the record to reflect today that the truth is that the Santa Fe Ranch POA was in violation, as I stated on the record on October 18th and November 15th, 2021. As you can see by this letter, they were noticed 12 days prior to the first Board of Supervisors meeting in which you chose to attempt to make me out as a misinformed individual. So we can let the record reflect today that they were in violation, and the supervisor, the department director, the Santa Fe Ranch POA board president, Mike Cervillo, along with Melissa Layton, the property manager, all attempted to represent otherwise in an attempt to deceive the audience and members in the forum on October 18th and November 15th, 2021. You may find this as meaningless or pointless. However, I see it as a representation of each of your character and what I consider gross negligence and quite possibly slanderous by attempting to have fellow supervisors and the audience believe I was wrong and misrepresenting the facts and evidence. Needless to say, I certainly expected the Santa Fe Ranch POA board president and to be deceitful, along with the property manager. But what I didn't expect was for a sitting supervisor and a department director to misrepresent the facts and evidence. So today, we will let the record reflect that the truth, as it was written on October 6, 2021, that in fact, the Santa Fe Ranch POA was in violation of the floodplain and grading ordinance dating back to 2009. And in fact, they were required to correct the violation by obtaining a floodplain use permit. Thank you.
Kenny Works.
Kenny Works, Yucca, Arizona. I wanted to thank Sam Elters and Ron Gold and the rest of the county staff that showed up at our annual meeting a month ago, and it shows, and it's been an extension of cooperation, a note of cooperation between the county staff and our Property Owners Association at Santa Fe Ranch Property Owners Association meetings. So I wanted to thank the county staff and Sam Elters in particular for showing up at our meeting and continuing that era of cooperation with our association. Now, the reason I'm speaking mainly is that we have a president that is more interested in hating prosperous United States of America than he is in hating the Russians. I was, in a sense, the political left's attempt to silence ideas they cannot or will not debate are a confession of intellectual bankruptcy. But this is just one of the left's ever-increasing restrictions on other people's freedoms to live their lives as they see fit, rather than as their betters tell them. This is a comment made by Thomas Sowell. I think that with our upcoming redistricting, we need to keep in mind to try to keep the left voice as diminished as we can, because they've proven to be hurtful to our country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Armin Strang.
Good morning, Chairman. Good morning, Supervisors. Almost a year ago, we had a meeting with the Road Department and order of Cavalry Road and dust abatement. We haven't heard anything of it. Is there anything going on with the road? And the road is deteriorating by the day. We have people driving up and down the road with 70, 80 miles an hour, side-by-sides going up and down the road every weekend from California. This is getting out of hand over there with the dust. We do need to do something with the roads. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. By law, I'm allowed to address criticism, and I'm going to take a moment to do that. I would like to remind the public that Mr. Brian Ware, 1253 Escalera Place, Bullhead City, began to slander and libel and harass my wife, slander and libel myself and members of my family, following the unanimous vote of the Board of Supervisors to deny a special use permit that would allow Mr. Ware to bring over 300 people in a multi-day event to his illegally constructed RV park built on residential land. Thank you. Presentations. A presentation of the 2021 Achievement in Excellence Procurement AEP award by the National Procurement Institute, Inc., NPI, to Mojave County on behalf of the Mojave County Procurement Department.
Good morning. I hope this works. Thank you, Michelle. So thank you, Chairman and Supervisors, for allowing me to make this presentation to the board and to share a little bit of information on the award and the Mojave County Procurement Department. This is now my second opportunity to present this to the board, and I thought I'd do something a little bit different this time. I considered sending you the 160-page application that we submitted last year, but I didn't want to bore you. So instead, I'm going to do a quick presentation that talks about what this award actually measures and how the county measures that. So This award is confirmation of our department's professionalism, innovation, and leadership in our field. We are proud to be a 16-time recipient of this award since Supervisor Lincolnfelter first applied in 2005. And we are one of only 10 Arizona agencies to receive the award for 2021. The bulk of the award's criteria focuses on operations, policy, and procurement strategy. These are things like having an ethics policy, providing internal resources, and basically how we do what we do day to day. The use of technology has also been an important category with a recent focus on e-procurement systems, and the remaining criteria include professional development, formal education, and leadership. For 2022, the application which we are currently working on, there have been some notable changes. The use of technology has been narrowed to focus primarily on e-procurement, which now results in an increased opportunity for points or recognition related to professionalism and leadership. In order to receive the award, we must successfully apply for 100 of the 200 available points. As you can see by the green line on the chart, our eligibility has been increasing, but with changes in the application process for 2022, and as we navigate through professional certification of our professional staff, we intend to apply for up to 130 points this coming year. That's actually down 20 points from the prior year. Also, as you can see from the maroon line on this chart, we have yet to successfully apply or receive all criteria that we've applied for, but I am hopeful that 2022 will be our year. Now I'd like us to look forward to what we're doing well and where we have room for improvement based on the scoring criteria. When it comes to strategic procurement, we are highly successful. There are always opportunities for growth, and in particular, we have opportunities in vendor outreach and training. We also do very well in the operational and policies categories, with primary opportunities in this category related to the authority to award contracts by the procurement director and sustainable procurement programs. As I've mentioned already, we've done well in our use of technology, but with a more targeted focus on e-procurement, we have some work to do in this area. We are also in an awkward position right now related to professional certification, but we have exciting news coming in that area. Leadership within our profession has always been a strong category for Mojave County. We have several past chapter presidents or leaders within the chapters, and I am currently a leader at the national level. In 2021, we received 100% of the category points available, and we expect to repeat this in 2022. Of course, I will continue to encourage professional organizational involvement within my staff. And as you can see, our future is very bright in procurement. I've got a few notable changes on the horizon. 3 employees within our department are pursuing additional certification. We had 1 employee receive her certified professional public buyer in the last year. I have 2 employees that are looking to continue their formal education to receive bachelor's degrees. And in our own developmental strategic planning for the procurement department, we are looking for opportunities to achieve efficiencies through the use of technology, including contract management tools, and we are exploring options for e-procurement. It's certainly a team award, and I want to just take the time to thank my small but mighty team that's standing behind me today for their work and dedication to excellence. And to wrap up, we'd love to request a picture with the board and County Manager Altiers. Again, thank you for the opportunity and the support that you've given our department and allowing us to highlight these successes. If there are any questions.
Any questions from the board?
Chairman Gould.
Supervisor Lingenfelter.
I don't mean to embarrass Tara, but when I hired her so many years ago, she didn't have 1 day of public procurement experience. And now I just want to say that you've grown into an amazing leader. And I can't tell you how proud I am of you and also of your team. I think that this award demonstrates a certain level of professional commitment, not only to the organization, but to the taxpayers of Mojave County. So I just want to say thank you all for what you're doing, and just keep it up.
Thank you. It wasn't 20 years though. Please don't make me older than I am. All right. So if you guys are okay with it, we'd love to get a picture.
Sure.
I can send them back to the office. Your phone or no, maybe. You got it long enough.
Consent agenda. Following items listed under the consent agenda will be considered as approved and acted upon by one motion with no separate discussion of said items unless the board member so requests. In that event, the item will be removed from the consent agenda for separate discussion and action. Supervisor Bishop, have anything you'd like to remove?
I do not.
Supervisor Angus.
Not this morning.
Supervisor Johnson.
24.
Supervisor Langenfelter.
Nothing this morning, Chairman Gould.
I'm looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda, less item 24.
So moved.
Second.
Heard that motion, second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. You have it. You have it. So ordered. Supervisor Johnson, item 24.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not sure where this came from. We have money in the building fund to do a sheriff substation. We haven't decided upon the location. We haven't decided if we're going to go ahead with this. I think this is premature. I think if we're going to do something, we should be doing a combined substation, which we've done, all the other departments do that for cost. That's my point. I think this is way ahead of time. We don't have the money to move ahead. And at this point, I think it's just premature.
Director Latosky, you want to give us an overview, please?
Good morning, members of the board. Chairman Gould, Supervisor Johnson. The board, as you know, appropriated $5 million towards sheriff substations in the adoption of the FY22 budget. And in consultation with the sheriff, it is desired to construct a new facility in the Mojave Valley area, replacing the current facility on Vanderslice Road. Staff, myself, and my Public Works colleagues did a exhaustive search from Mojave Valley up towards Fort Mojave with the interest of pursuing lands at the best location and least cost to the county. And I was aware of BLM disposal lands. See, BLM manages, the swath of federal lands, but they have already identified some lands that they have pre-qualified for their consideration for disposal. Now, there's still a process by which, through environmental clearances and cultural clearances, to actually cement that decision that they would dispose. But I did identify, and the sheriff consented to pursuing what's before the board, federal lands that are adjacent Boundary Cone Road between Girard and Ashley. So that's within 3 miles. In fact, within 3 miles to the east of State Route 95. So before the board is a request for the board's approval to file an application for a recreation and public purpose lease to pursue the county leasing or otherwise outright purchasing these lands for a future sheriff substation.
Questions for Mr. Latosky? Supervisor Bishop.
Steve, can you explain what happened to the proposal or idea that we were going to build a substation combined with the Havasu and the Mojave Valley substations? And as I recall, it was going to be along I-40 somewhere at the turnoff at Lake Havasu.
Correct.
Highway 95.
Supervisor Bishop, you may be recalling I believe Public Works actually led a 5-year building program by which there was a site in the vicinity of Franconia, the exit 13 turnoff at I-40 that could have possibly co-located the facilities. But in this instance, under the appropriation in the FY22 budget, staff is taking direction from the sheriff, who has taken an interest in still having separate Mojave Valley area and Lake Havasu area substations. So this is purely a product of our direction from the sheriff.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. You know, I'm feeling a little comfortable going forward with this right now. I'd like to have it continued until this legislative session is over, because there's some controversial bills that are being looked at right now at the Capitol, HB 2541 and Mayor Bill SB 1381, and it has to do with deputy and detention officer salaries being the same as the Highway Patrol, the Arizona Department of Public Safety, and other agencies. And there's discussions ongoing, and I think there's a remedy that's been suggested, but until that's settled, I don't think we should be committing any money to further any capital improvement projects until this is settled. Because if this passes or is amended and passes to where we need to budget more money for the sheriff legislatively, it's an unfunded mandate, and we'll have to come up with those funds. So if that happens, we may need to combine those two districts into one building as it goes forward. So I'm very much in support of you, Sheriff Schuster, but you know, it is a concern. I think we should all be looking at this, because if the state mandates that we have to do certain things, then the sheriff's 10-year plan kind of goes down the drain. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. Mr. Latosky, how long of a process is this process to acquire the property?
Chairman Gould, that's an excellent question. I can infer by some conversations with BLM, who certainly can't commit at this point. It's probably about a 12 to 24 month process to actually take lease of any applied for lands.
What do we expect the cost to acquire this property to be?
I've estimated at about $50,000 because there are going to be costs related to environmental and cultural clearances, and particularly if we want to expedite the time frame, those are possibly some additional costs associated with that the county may bear. So my first estimate would be about $50,000.
Further questions for Mr. Latosky? Thank you, sir. Sheriff, I'm sure you'd like to speak on this.
Yeah, if you don't mind. Good morning, Chairman, Supervisors. I guess I'm looking for some clarification. I have some confusion. When the project that Supervisor Johnson brought forth at the I-4 corridor was introduced, that was not me introducing that. That was Supervisor Johnson, which I supported. I mean, we do need new substations. The board collectively at that time decided not to move forward with that project. In a real world, we need substations, and we need them right now. This is a need that's been pressing for many, many years. This is something we've identified in our 10-year plan, and we've been very vocal about the needs based on public service. This is about providing the best public service we can to our citizens, and we've done rather well. We've done well working with this board, with our staffing, with our compensation. Just a little background, the ASA, the Arizona Sheriff's Association, did come up with a parity bill. I was in disagreement with that bill based on its current verbiage. Now, yes, we do need parity. We need to make sure that law enforcement doesn't suffer when it comes to salary, because then we become a training ground for other agencies, and we've seen that. This board has worked diligently with me to, excuse me, ensure that that has not happened, and I'm very proud of what we've accomplished. But I guess where my confusion lies is when we got this funding approved last year, the $5 million, that in my mind was to go ahead to start building substations. I presented it as such with the substation in Lake Havasu, Mojave Valley, and up on the Arizona Strip. So today, I guess there's a confusion as to why we're not pursuing relatively free land that could take up to a year to get, with the knowledge that we do want to move forward. At least I hope you would agree we want to move forward with the substation. Those are my comments.
Sheriff, I visited the site last week. It's a good site. It's got a bluff between the property and boundary cone, but I think we can work around that. But that's probably about as good of a site as we're ever going to get, in my opinion.
Logistically, it's a fantastic site. It's a large property. I believe it's 17 acres. We don't need that. We're looking at maybe 2 acres, a corner of that property. Infrastructure is already led up to it. It's right behind the school. And the reason it's ideal is it splits our area there. We've got Fort Mojave and Mojave Valley, the two highest call volume areas in that district. So we want to be right in the middle of it. Where it stands now, the current substation's at Vanderslice, and any call towards the Bullhead city limit is an expedited response time based on the traffic, the growing traffic concerns there on 95. So we are more than willing to work with the board, of course, and we as a sheriff's office respect your decisions, but I am very, very confused as to what's happening this morning.
Questions for the sheriff?
Yes.
Sure. Oh, good.
Supervisor Bishop.
Sheriff, in Dolan Springs and Meadview, those folks are being told that they don't really need a substation in the remote communities because, you know, with modern technology, everything an officer needs is in his patrol unit. So they no longer go to the station for briefings or to write their reports or to use their computers. So maybe the audience in this board needs an explanation as to what this substation would be used for. I mean, would it be a temporary jail? Would it have things that patrol officers don't have access to, like areas to book your evidence and stuff like that?
It would be identical to what we service here in Kingman with our main office. It's a substation with the exact same layout as far as evidence, a place for the officers to write the reports, a place for them to bring people in that are under arrest to do investigations. It's much needed to say that we could get by with no substation in those two areas. And in reality, I'd love to put a substation in Dolan and all the remote areas, but I don't have anyone to staff them, so it'd be kind of pointless to do that.
Supervisor Johnson.
Be nice, Buster.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with Supervisor Bishop on that. Law enforcement has changed. I'm not telling you anything. We furnish vehicles for the deputies to go to work, so there's no briefings. I'm thinking the use of a substation has changed over the years from what it used to be, just like with now they all have the computers like Supervisor Bishop was saying. My biggest concern with this is the board needs to make a decision. Obviously $5 million is not going to build what we need to build. If we're looking, and that's up to the board and with your direction, if we're going to start building substations in Havasu and then Mojave, and then if we look at other areas where they want them, that's a tremendous cost. And plus your staffing has to be there. If we're going to hold the prisoners in those locations, is it going to be just for booking, or is it going to be, you know, weekend guys and things like that? I think the board needs to make a decision on how we're going to fund all these, because we still have, you know, we haven't really taken care of the coroner's issue yet. We have other facilities that have to be put together. I think if you commit at this point without having a plan for the future on how we're going to build all these buildings and how we're going to support them, I think we're making a mistake.
Chairman Gould?
Supervisor Angus.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I thought we have already funded this. It's already in the budget.
We put $5 million. I mean,
Right.
You have to put it somewhere. So they said, well, we'll put it in there for a sheriff's substation. But like we had looked before at possibly combining them. And that was my idea. And we brought it forward. That along with the coroner's office to be built at one location. At that time, we decided, or we didn't decide it, but it was thought that we could put the animal control there at the same time too. But we've since built a new building up here. But you're going to keep, at least in my opinion, you're going to keep spending $5 million there. Now what are we going to do with Havasu? We're going to spend $5 million down there to build a substation. You know, and we have a lot of things that need to be done. We have critical needs in the county for buildings. We're seeing, like today, we have another thing on the lease coming up that's brought back. I just think we need a plan in place for, you know, the next 20 years, saying, so the sheriff knows, so the public knows that, hey, if we're going to build substations, this is where we're building them at. If we're going to build a coroner's office, you know, medical examiners, those things, so we have that in place. That's all.
So if I'm reading this correctly, this is just to file an application. This item that we're voting on is just to file an application for recreation or public purpose lease with the Bureau of Land Management.
That's
Because it's a year to 2 year
That's what I'm being told,
process.
yes.
So that's all we're voting on. So it would come back to us anyway.
It would. And I'm really, I need additional clarification. My understanding was this board approved $5 million to move forward with substations. I have been working on a Havasu substation layout on the current property for over 3 months, and we were getting ready to bring that to you. And if I am wrong, if I was supposed to ask permission to build the substations, I thought we crossed that bridge. So I guess I need direction is what I need.
I thought we did as well. That's why I'm curious too. But this item is, we can have those discussions brought back to us, but this is just to start, whether we do it or not. If it's going to take such a long time, let's at least start the process. We can, you know, use that
Worst
land
case
for others.
scenario, not to interrupt, worst case scenario, you got yourself a nice piece of land up there.
Right.
It's got
I'm
plenty
going to
of
make a
room.
motion that we approve item 24.
Supervisor Angus, I'll second that for discussion. I'm still not clear. If we go forward with acquiring the land, is it, can we use it for other purposes if we decide to do one substation for both areas? I mean, we're putting $50,000 into the acquisition of this property. Even though it's time intensive, it's still going to cost, so.
Mr. Latosky, I was looking at the application, and I had some concern. The application is written out for the sheriff's use, but would that limit us from using any of that 70-acre parcel for any other uses? Or if we apply, could we apply in a more general term? Unless the sheriff said he doesn't need 70 acres.
Chairman Gould, the Bureau of Land Management is going to demand a specific plan of development. They definitely desire to know what government facility will be on the property. It can always be open to a potential amendment in the future where we would approach the BLM and say we have a different type of government facility that we wish to site in the land, but we do have to open up in the application. That's why you see that in the application, your backup, that we do declare a sheriff's substation as being our preferred facility that will be developed on the property.
Do we think that if we added, say, a library site there also, would that then reduce our chances of obtaining the lease from the BLM?
Chairman Gould, I don't believe it'll necessarily diminish our chances. I think the BLM does look favorably on any type of government facility as being a tailored use for the recreation public purposes lease.
Since the library is in a lease facility is why I speak of the library. Any other questions for Mr. Latosky? Supervisor Bishop.
Mr. Lakowski, could we combine the sheriff's substation on this property with maybe the morgue, or could we expand the size of the substation to include the Havasu area so that, you know, most of the patrol units are self-contained in their vehicles, so the need to go to the substation is minimized as compared to, say, the days that I was a deputy sheriff. So maybe this is the location for the District 2, District 5 substation combined on this 17 acres. Just a thought. I'd be interested if the sheriff thinks that could work.
Chairman Gould, Supervisor Bishop, if I could just interject, I don't want to go down a road where we're diminishing the need for the substations. Even in Lake Havasu, yes, we have mobile computers. We have a lot of different technology. All this technology has to be downloaded. It all has to be done according to our policy and procedures. So every deputy that comes in off the street, whether it's boating or patrol, is going to dock their cameras. They have to dock them somewhere. We don't allow them to do it at their house because that's evidence surveillance on that camera. There's a lot that goes into a substation, and we'll use Dolan as a great example. The officers that work there are driving 50 miles back into Kingman every night to dock their cameras, to do their reports. We do interviews in our substation. We don't do those in the field when we're dealing with major crimes. So there is definitely a valid need for a substation in the areas where the call volume calls for that. So I really hope we're not diminishing the notion that we can use a smaller substation. And I love the idea of incorporating other county buildings. In fact, Supervisor Lingenfelter and I talked about that up on the Strip. I think it's a valid way to move forward. But I guess the end game is we need to move forward.
Okay, so if we move forward and we decide not to build this on the 17 acres in Mojave Valley, then what happens to the land? I mean, if BLM approves this, thinking we're going to build a county building there, and that falls through by the will of the board, then what happens to our $50,000 investment?
Supervisor, Chairman Gould, Supervisor Bishop, with regard to that, there's a certain prescribed term by which the lessee or entity that ultimately purchases the property must develop the proposed land use. And I believe, and please don't quote me, it's something about a 2 or 3 year time period. BLM actually checks up on these, on the status. If the lease is in fact granted, is that entity actually doing something with the property? So the county would be compelled to follow its plan of development over a reasonable period of time. Otherwise, BLM actually can take the action to rescind the action that it took to grant that property to the county.
Okay, thank you. If we had voted to extend the quarter-cent sales tax, I wouldn't see a problem at all, because we would have money coming into the capital improvement funds. But, since we don't, I think we need to be careful. And
Chairman Gould.
And like I said, I support the sheriff's office and the substations. I'm just trying to figure out how we're going to get a morgue and all the other buildings that we're looking at building. And maybe the county manager can clear up some questions in all of our minds.
Go to Supervisor Lingenfelter first.
Thank you, Chairman Gould. First of all, I want to say that I view public safety is really paramount in Mojave County, and I think that this board has done and past boards have done a good job with supporting your department, and every year you progress a little bit. So I think that needs to be acknowledged. And the second thing I want to say is, I don't know if these substations are one size fits all, probably not, but I know that it's in the best interest of the county to really, as Supervisor Johnson said, there needs to be some additional planning. You need to start 20 years out and work backwards. You need to, if there's an opportunity for shared facilities, for instance, in my area in District 1 on the Arizona Strip, there's a lot of growth that's going on up there in those areas, and we need law enforcement, but we also need, development services, all those other things, environmental health, you name it. So I think that there needs to be some additional planning between the sheriff's office and the county public works and others to make sure that you're positioning the entire county for success in the future. I also think that Supervisor Bishop hit it on the head where the ASA, if you spoke out against those bills, I know it doesn't really have anything to do with this, but it's not really the best approach to try and end run around the county boards of supervisors as far as funding, when all of us have our unique challenges and staffing and facilities, and we need to have that control to work with you directly and not be handcuffed to financial commitments that are going to have a ripple effect on everything else. So appreciate it.
Chairman Gould, Supervisor Lingenfelter, that was my point exactly, and unfortunately I was the minority on that board, and as any board, the majority moved forward with it. I think that CSA and ASA should have worked together from the onset, and I'm hoping that we can do that in the future. I just find myself in an awkward position. Yes, I'm a member of ASA. Yes, I believe there should be parity in law enforcement. I do not like the way this bill was introduced. Myself and one other sheriff spoke against that, but in reality, it did move forward, and we're at a point now where the original verbiage has been completely changed anyhow, so will not impact our county financially this year.
Chairman Gould? As far as that piece of legislation, I think we really spoke in depth about it at our LPC meeting last week, and I think all sides have come to realize that it has a lot of unintended consequences, and I don't believe, I mean, I'm not a legislator, but I think that there are other things that are being talked about instead of that, and I think everybody's in agreement on that, and even the sponsors of that bill, just so you know.
County Manager, did you want to weigh in on Supervisor Bishop's question on how are we going to come up with these buildings?
Mr. Chairman, Supervisors, I'll take a shot. Last year, for this current budget year, the board approved funding for sheriff substations and for a medical examiner facility / a morgue for us to proceed with those, understanding that there was a need. That was done during the budget approval process, finalized in August. In October, the board directed staff to take over the operation of the fairground. In November, the board awarded a contract for the medical examiner services to be provided by a third party with the understanding that we would bring those in-house. In January or thereabout, staff came to the board with a request for funding to solicit support for a siting of to explore the fairground relocation site. The board decided to have that done in-house. So with that said, we have been looking at facility sites and perhaps exploring combinations of the fairground, the medical examiner, where, how, what benefits, what guiding criteria, and so on. In fact, we are no more than a month away, perhaps, of just putting something so preliminary in front of you as the board to just get a feel if we're even in the ballpark before we proceed further. And so with all that said, if it's acceptable to you, and acknowledging that if you were to approve this item today, that we will not be incurring $50,000 in a month or two. It will take time. Those clearance surveys or studies do take some time. So we can, it takes time to initiate those and get them going and incur the cost. We could, if the board wishes to do so, and direct staff to do so, we'll be happy to take the three, the fairground, the morgue, and coordinate with the sheriff as to what the needs are and how best to live within our means and provide the facilities needed, and come back to you in, we can make it, we can come to you as planned, perhaps in toward the second board meeting in April, if that's acceptable. Put something in front of you or sooner if possible, and then make it more of a recurring. Perhaps we can come 30 or 60 days later, continue to work with you and get direction. We are currently in our budget preparation process as well, so the timing of it may work best. We thought all along that this would have to be really a close coordination with you, the board. And this clearly is your vision and intent as well. So if that works for you, we'll be happy to take that approach and keep in touch with you on our findings, and with your direction, we'll either go in the same direction or a different direction.
Thank you, sir. Any further discussion?
Chairman Gold, I'd like to take back my second and maybe ask Supervisor Angus if she would reword her motion to revisit this the second meeting of April.
No, I'm going to keep my motion to approve the application that's going to take 2 years.
I'll second that.
Heard that motion in second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I vote aye. Those vote nay.
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 With your vote of 3 ayes and 2 nays, the motion passes. Let's see. Item 33. It's a public hearing. I'm going to open the public hearing on item 33. Is anyone here to testify to item 33? Hearing none, I'm going to close the public hearing on item 33. What's the pleasure of the board?
Chairman Gold,
I closed it.
I'll make a motion that we approve.
Second.
You've heard that motion in second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes appear to have it. Do have it. So ordered. Item 34. I'm going to open the public hearing on item 34. I've got... Okay, that's available to answer questions. Anyone here to testify on item 34? Hearing none, I'm going to close the hearing on item 34. What's the pleasure of the board?
Chairman Gould,
Supervisor Lingenfelter.
is the applicant or a representative of the applicant, can you come to the podium, please,
Yes.
Kathy? Thank you.
Good morning, Honorable Chairman, Supervisors. Yes, Mr. Lingenfelter.
Good morning, Kathy. As you're aware, you've done a lot of work up in this area. This area is very sensitive when it comes to billboards and dark skies and the scenic byway area up there. This is, I understand it, just, this is a local business, not somebody that's from out of state that wants to do one billboard and they're going to be using it to advertise their own businesses that are located in that area. Is that correct?
That is correct. And this one did receive some opposition. It was a form letter submitted to people in this area, of which a majority of them were outside the 300-foot area. This is a request by the owner of this property, Mr. Michael Black, to put up a billboard on here that he can advertise his business, at least on the one side going south. He does own the Beaver Dam Inn, the Beaver Dam Golf Course. He's currently building an RV park in that area, and this site is proposed for future storage units when the cost of materials levels out. So this is for his use, and we are hoping that the board could support his efforts to draw in some people.
I appreciate that, and I do listen to the residents up there, that the residents are very concerned with avoiding an oversaturation, if you will, of billboards along that small corridor. So I am wary of that and cognizant of that. This is a local business that's going to be using it to advertise his local business in that area. So I think there's some more work to be done up in that area with my constituents on the billboard issue, but for this, I'm going to be motioning to approve the adoption of BOS resolution number 2022-040.
Thank you.
Second.
You've heard that motion in second. Any further discussion?
I have a question.
Supervisor Johnson.
Were those the only businesses that Mr. Black owns up there?
He also owns a casino, but that would be in Nevada in the area, and he has several hundred acres of property in and around this area
Thank
that
you.
I'm aware of.
Thank you.
You've heard that motion. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. You guys appear to have it. Do have it. So ordered.
Thank you.
I'm going to open the public hearing on item 35. We've got a couple. Larry Hartsuker.
Not a public speaker, so I'm not going to be as eloquent as all these other people. I'm going to have to read this that I wrote last night. I live on the corner of, well, actually my address is 4081 Cavalry Road in Fort Mojave. It's regarding this piece of property that's diagonal to me, that is being put in for a zone change. There's two real major issues with this property. First is the traffic pattern. They said that the traffic that they're going to use is to go out Dunlap to get onto the highway. Well, Dunlap is a very narrow neck with two 90-degree turns, two 90-degree right turns to get onto the highway. And if there's two cars or a truck with a trailer trying to get on the highway, that blocks that entrance to anyone coming in off the highway. They can't, you can't get by, it's too skinny. To turn north out of Dunlop, which would mean a left-hand turn, across 3 lanes of 60-mile-an-hour traffic down the highway into the fast lane is like suicide. So then they're going to go down to Gardner, which is the next entrance onto the highway. Same narrow neck, same two 90-degree turns, plus the camber of the highway makes it so that longer trailers, like anything probably in the 40-foot range, semis get hung up on that because the camber of the highway, it's starting to make a sweep. And so they get high-centered when they try to get on the highway off of Gardner. So then they're going to figure out that those two don't work. They're going to end up going down to Cavalry, which has been brought up already. It's a speedway. It's a dirt road. They're going to go down to Valencia, which is the next entry onto the highway, where Young Scholars School is. And that's a bad spot because of the new median strips in the highway. Everybody knows you have to make U-turns to access any business on that stretch of the highway. So Valencia is a big U-turn spot. So that's going to be a big problem, and that was all brought to us by the geniuses at ADOT. So then they're going to go down further after they've figured out they can't get on the highway that way. They're going to go further down Cavalry to Fort Mojave, which is really, there's a signal at Camp Mojave. That's really the only place that you can make a left-hand turn from this piece of property they're talking about with a trailer and to go. What happened?
You're out of time, but I'll give you another 30 seconds.
Okay. That's just the traffic problem. The worst problem is the topography. The drainage comes down the highway, down Dunlap, which is dirt, and it absorbs quite a bit. But when we have these flash flood things, Cavalry becomes the collecting point for, all of the water that comes off all these little businesses that we have up at the east end of Dunlap. Well, this proposal that is going in is to put 17.5 acres more of asphalt or some non-porous substrate So it's going to add 17 and a half acres more of water onto this flooded area already. So it's going to end up flooding out all the houses that are west on Dunlap. The only way they could mitigate that would be do a hydrology study and put a settling basin or detention basin on the southwest corner of this piece of property, which would take up a whole bunch of their space, in order to mitigate flooding that area all the time. The county crew doesn't even acknowledge that Dunlap is actually a county road, even though there's county road signs at every corner. There's a county road sign, but it is not maintained by the county at all. They go up and scrape Cavalry 2 or 3 times a year just to kind of keep the ruts out of it. But I have got pictures of the huge swimming pool sized 4-foot deep mud hole that's right at that corner of Dunlap and Cavalry pretty much year round. But when it floods, it really, really gets bad in there. So Cavalry becomes really the only north-south way to traverse getting out of any of our neighborhoods. And it's all rural property. We all have horses, we all have cows, we all have kids that ride bikes out on the dirt road. So this is just going to end up being a bigger mess. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Cat Hart Suker.
Hi, my name is Kat Hartsaker, Chairman Gold, and to the board. I'd like to reiterate, and I know, at least I hope, you all received the letter that we sent to you with our concerns, lining all of these issues out. Think about it. You've moved to the country for a quiet time. You've got a front porch you want to enjoy. Your kids, you take walks out on the street, on the dirt road. You take your dogs out for walks. Your kids are riding bikes. Your neighbors are riding their horses. And we get all this additional traffic, as Larry pointed out. And we know from experience, they are not going to be using that access that the developer is proposing on Dunlap. They're going to try it a time or two, find out how difficult it is, because we take a boat out 2 and 3 days a week during the summer. And it was hard enough when it was just a chicken lane without the medians. The median lanes make it impossible. They jut out further than they need to, so making U-turns on the highway for a car is impossible, so you use all the side streets. I believe, talking to one of the staff members, they go 5 and 6 blocks out of their way every day, in and out, to go to work because of the medians. And I know that's not a direct thing that we're addressing, but it does impact this development and how it's going to impact the residents all on Calvary. People coming in from California to put their boats or RVs in that storage are going to turn up on Andrew off of Aztec, turns into Cavalry, Dirt Road, into Dunlap. If you approve this, you are basically putting a dirt freeway in front of all of our residents. You're making it an unsafe neighborhood for our children, for our dogs, for the life that we have gotten. And I don't know if there's a way to show you the pictures of the flooding.
You can put them on that corner, your left-hand upper corner.
Okay.
Of the podium.
This was 2 years ago. I know we haven't had a lot of rain in the last couple of years, but that is Cavalry Road. That's just at the edge of our property. We're on the corner of Dunlap and Cavalry. If you, it just keeps enlarging it.
It just came up on our screen, so you're okay.
This is my husband driving the truck down the middle of Cavalry. We had to do a major call into the street department because they weren't grading things properly. What they did to alleviate that condition is they cut huge drainage culverts onto personal property in order to get that water to drain off, and that's still there. the hole that he's talking about on the corner of Dunlap and Cavalry, when it rains, you get the four-wheel drive truckers that come out and they dig it deeper. The county road department does nothing to alleviate that. So now people are driving across that corner lot opposite us, personal property, in order to get anywhere. So I'd really appreciate it if you could disapprove this, or at least come out and see it for yourselves and talk to the neighbors about their concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Armin Strang.
Good morning again, supervisors. Dunlop is not a through street. When you come from Highway 95, it drops off about 3-4 feet. There's a big hole on the end of Dunlop where it's paved. How can they go in and out there? And then the other thing is, why do we have to suffer for commercial development and profit of others when we bought the properties to have agricultural, residential properties? All over we have, or coming in is storage units. Do we really want to look like Havasu in Fort Mojave? I don't think so. We have a storage unit proposed on Valencia and 95. We have a storage unit right down the street on, Venetian storage. We have a storage unit proposed on Andrews and Aztec. And we have commercial development going on Andrews and Aztec. Why do we need more storage units with more lights? We have already American storage on the corner of Dunlop. They shine their bright lights into every house on the road there. There needs to be something done with road development first. And I really don't want to give up my way of life, peace and quiet. I have to listen to trucks going up and down the road from American storage all night long. I can't even leave the doors or windows open at my house. I have a 1/4 inch dust end of the day in the house. This is getting ridiculous. We do need to stop this commercial development there and then think about it to do either a road study, dust abatement study, or whatever. Something needs to be done first before we do more commercial development up there. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else like to testify on item 35? Ma'am?
Apologize. I don't.
You can state your name and your address.
My name's Mary Ramey. I and my husband have lived at the corner of Arcadia Lane. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. I'm sorry. My husband and I have lived at the corner of Arcadia Lane since 1977. We moved here because we liked the area and wanted to raise our sons in a rural setting. All the acreage around us was zoned AR, and in the mid-'80s, a developer came to our door and told us he wanted to rezone the parcel across the road from us and construct a 1-story office complex with parking areas. He made it sound like it would be very attractive. We made the mistake of believing him, and what he wound up building were 2 rows of 2-story metal warehouse buildings, which destroyed our beautiful view of the sunset and the mountains to the west of us. The point I'm trying to make is that once this zone change is approved, there's no telling what will finally be constructed on this 17.5 acres. This developer is from San Diego, probably has a beautiful home there. I'm sure he's not concerned about the residents of our area and what damage will be done to our lifestyle. I wish I had the time to prepare a video of our area so that you could see what myself and the other people here are talking about. I tried to send an email to all of you, but I don't know whether or not it was received because I'm not very wise about technological issues and problems. But I appreciate your time for listening to this, and if you at least postpone approving it until we could maybe bring more people or more petitions to you, we'd greatly appreciate that at least. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Christopher Hughes.
Good morning, supervisors, and appreciate the opportunity to address the board. I'm Chris Hughes. My address is 15904 Wilkes Lane, San Diego, California. I'm the applicant and the developer in this case. Wanted to address some of the things I just heard. The first thing is actually on the drainage issues. When you develop a property like this, anytime the ground is permeable and now you've covered it with concrete, you have to create a retention basin to percolate the water back into the ground. So this development will be required to include enough retention to hold up to a 100-year flood event. So we would not be adding any more additional risk of flood to the area. The other thing I wanted to mention is that the general plan for this parcel and some of the surrounding parcels is already general commercial. So this rezone brings this parcel into, or makes it consistent with the general plan, okay? And what we intend to construct is a Class A facility, fully enclosed RV and boat storage units, to answer one of the questions on why there is so much storage. And the reality is that most of these storage properties are almost entirely full. And that's because it's a huge area to recreate. It's very popular. And so people bring and they store their RVs, they store their boats, and they come and they spend money in the area. So this helps to support that. The other thing I thought I'd mention is the traffic impact. I mean, this kind of use is absolutely the lowest kind of traffic impact that you can have after you've developed a property. So it's something like 20 times less than retail. It's 10 times less than homes. So, you know, our 200 storage units that we're proposing, or roughly thereabouts, that's going to produce about 40 visits per day on average. So we had a traffic study prepared already for it, which will be submitted to the county. Last thing I thought I'd mention is that there are already semis going up and down Dunlop Road from a distribution center that was built out on basically to the west of this property. What we indicated at the Planning Commission hearing and what we would like to do is actually improve Dunlap Road, because as the first gentleman mentioned, there is a section where the county never paved it. So that the pavement drops off onto just native soil, and then it comes back up, it's asphalt. And so what we would like to do is actually improve that and resurface what's already there, so we have a nice clean entrance into the facility. Those are my comments. I'm happy to answer any additional questions that you may have.
I don't think we can take questions in the public hearing.
I'm going to defer to the attorney on that.
Close the public hearing.
Mr. Chair, you're asking whether the board can ask questions of the applicant, of the speakers?
In the public hearing.
I don't think so, Your Honor, or Mr. Chair. I think after you close the public hearing, certainly you can call them up and ask questions, so it may be a matter of mere nuance.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. Mr. Walsh, do you want to take questions on this, or are you going to defer to Mr. Holtry?
Chairman Gould, Board, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. I've also got my planning manager, Scott Holtry, here with me to help out as well.
So there was a comment that, I believe it was 1980, the general plan said that this lot, to conform with the general plan, would be a commercial lot.
So if I may, I'll go ahead and place this up here. The general plan does currently show this property as general commercial. Therefore, this proposed rezone would be in conformance with the general plan. The lot in question is this one here.
And that was in 1980.
Whether it was in the 1980 general plan, I don't have that right offhand, but I do know in the current general plan, it is designated as general commercial.
Okay. And then the area plan?
Correct.
So
yes.
Okay. And the developer is going to be required to contain any water
Yes.
that falls on that property?
Chairman Gould, that is correct. As part of the site plan development and review process, the developer would be required to retain the 2-hour 100-year storm. So basically, we would look at with them during that review process, any impervious surfacing that they place down, whether it be metal buildings, whether it be pavement, they would be required to retain the amount, basically the 2-hour 100-year storm of that.
Okay. And road improvements?
The road improvements, we would be working hand in hand with Public Works and look at the impact that this development would have on the traffic of the area, depending on Public Works review, whether a traffic impact analysis would be required, and then any recommendations made through that traffic impact analysis would be required. The Planning and Zoning Commission did include as part of their recommendation that the site, the ingress and egress to the site would be paved. So whether or not that comes up as part of a traffic impact analysis, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended that a paved access be required as part of the rezone.
So if we were to adopt this, that would be included as mandatory?
That's correct.
Okay. And we do have a problem on Calvary Road because of the traffic, because of the median issue on Highway 95 that these people brought up. People have found new and creative, or some people wouldn't call them creative, ways of getting around to instead of making left-hand turns, they're going in through neighborhoods and whatnot. So we need to do something with Calvary Road.
And
that's not your department, but
correct, Chairman Gould, that's correct. That would likely be brought up during the traffic impact analysis. That could be required as part of the site plan approval.
Because I do agree with the homeowners that the people are not going to be making a left-hand turn across Highway 95 to Dunlap. They're going to be coming in from Camp Mojave most likely, and then going up Calvary to get to the storage place. Because you just can't, that's right near my office and you cannot get across that highway. Anyone else have questions? Hearing none, thank you, sir. What's the pleasure of the board?
Chairman Gould, if no one else wants to make the motion, I will make a motion that we approve Resolution 2022-041. This does make it consistent with the general plan, and I think all of the problems that's been verbalized in this meeting this morning will be addressed at that time.
Second.
You've heard that motion and second. Any further discussion?
Chairman Gould.
Supervisor Lingenfelter.
I'd like to ask one last question to Director Latosky, if I might.
Sure.
Thank you, Steve. As a part of the site planning process on this project, from what I've heard, it sounds like a traffic impact analysis would be required. What sort of mitigation or mitigations would be required? Well, I won't speak for you.
Correct, Supervisor Lingenfelter. As soon as we have a formal site plan submittal, staff will look at the square footage, namely usually the number of units with a storage facility and compare that to nationally accepted practices for estimating trip generation and apply them accordingly to two things. One, the board adopted traffic impact analysis standards, and two, our pavement structural design standards as well for potential impact due to the type of vehicles.
So, I mean, those of us in Mojave County, we have an obligation to look out for everybody in the county, all of our residents, and it's not to speak negatively against any project that has to do with TIA, but I have in my experience, I think that the private companies that have to get those TIAs, they tend to lowball the amount of trips per day that they think they're going to get. So, I mean, I'm confident with you and your expertise and your professional background that you'll actually be able to determine what you think the actual number of trips per day would be, and making sure that public safety, from a transportation, a safety and a mobility standpoint, you know, we would be protecting the residents in that area.
Supervisor Lingenfelter, I have a niche in my professional career in trip generation and these types of site developments. And as a certified professional traffic operations engineer, I do assure the board that I will look after staff and the decisions that we make in the interest of adhering to best practices. Again, it won't be subjective, it'll be totally objective, driving from the best practices as well as the standards adopted by the board.
Great. Thank you. You've answered my questions.
For that motion, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay.
Nay.
You guys appear to have it. You have it. So ordered. We're going to go to the redistricting issue. We've got an 11 o'clock appointment. Which is 41? 41. Come on down.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Chairman Gold, supervisors, glad to be here. Glad to be anywhere. Very glad to be here. Okay. Now, we're to be joined by, we're going to talk about the redistricting process a little bit. Okay, I'm just going to do a brief little presentation. I can be brief. Brief little presentation, okay, of just sort of how, what things, how we got to this particular point. Got to talk into that. Thank you. And right now, we had, it really started, the redistricting processes last year. We hired on a consultant group that we used 10 years prior to that. This is something I didn't have in what I was going to show you. And we went from 3 to 5 board of supervisors, and they did a very good job in what they did. So you all agreed last year, well, the board agreed last year to, hire them back on the process. Now, they could not be here right now, but they're supposed to be here via Teams meeting. Okay, so last I heard they weren't on, but I just sent them a message and led a phone call, and I got a message from them this morning that said I'll be there. Okay, so I'm expecting they'll tune in any moment. I don't know if they're going to pop up on the screen or what. I have no idea how I'll know they're in or not, but I'm just going to start on. Now, what I'd like to do is I want to, this is cool. How do you?
There you go.
Okay, let me do that. All right, redistricting highlights. Now, the laws governing supervisor districts. There's a law, Arizona Revised Statutes 11212, that says there's a deadline date of December 1st of 2021. We have to redistrict the Board of Supervisors according to the last census. Well, we know we're beyond that. Well, there was also, afterwards, there was Chapter 155 of Senate Bill 1107 that extended the Board of Supervisors redistricting until July 1st. Okay? Our goal was to, when we first got the information and get it together, to get it moving, and go on the process so it didn't start dragging out until, come summertime. So But so what the screen says is basically just says it has to be done by December 1st, but we got the reprieve, has to be into either 3 or 5 districts, depending on the population size, and so on. Hey, what did I do? How do I, I'm so, there we go. So, there you go. Who wants to drive? I'd love it. Now, here's a little history of redistricting in Mojave County. Now, currently, after the 2020 census, Mojave County has a total population of 213,267. Now, if you divide that by five Board of Supervisors districts, the ideal population per district is 42,653. I got to say, as I'm starting down the statistics, this is all a numbers game. Redistricting is a numbers game in reality, and then after the big picture of the numbers game, then you start taking other things into consideration, about communities of interest and all cool things like that and what have yous. Now, 2010, Mojave County's population was 200,186. That's when we went from 3 to 5 Board of Supervisors. There's a threshold of 175,000 people in a county that triggers that. Now, the ideal district population then was 40,037, and in 2000, just before I came in 2002, I got adopted into the 2000 redistricting. The county had a population of 155,032 and 3 BOS districts. So if you really look at the grand scheme of things, back then, the ideal district population was 51,677. So there were more people being represented by 3 at that time. Thus, we can kind of see the need to eventually have had gone to 5. Now flip it for me. Thank you. Now, when I spoke with what the consultants did, I gave them some basic parameters. Okay? Everything you start with is you start with what you currently have. You start with the starting point, and then you go from there. And what we currently have is Map 101, they called it. And here's Map 101. Now, they're all up in the back up there. They're really nice and pretty, on the big old paper and stuff. But Map 101 is exactly what we have right now with the new population figures. Now, I'm not going to discuss the population figures unless anybody really wants to, statistically, but Map 101 falls in the statistically acceptable range of about 10% deviant in population between the lowest and the highest districts. So it currently still fills that need. Okay? Next, please. Hello? Thank you. Now, the key points to gather from the very first map is all the Board of Supervisors districts contain the same voting precincts as current BOS districts. The deviation from the ideal population equals 3,923, and a population variance of 9.2% falls within the acceptable statutory allowance. Next. Map 102. Map 102, that's just a little picture of it. It looks an awful lot like the current one that I just had up. But I'm going to be saying that they moved the Oatman voting precinct from District 4 to District 2. Next, please. Now, changes to the map. The Oatman voting precinct is moved from District 4 to District 2. The deviation from the ideal population equals 3,990, and the population variance is 9.35, which falls within the acceptable statutory allowance. Next. Map 103. Just give you a little eyeball on it. Then the next page will say what's the changes could be. Next. Changes to the current map. What would happen is the Truxton, the Hackberry, the Peach Springs, Littlefield, North Canyon, and Moccasin are all moved from District 1 to District 4. Kingman South is moved from District 4 to District 1. The deviation from the ideal population equals 2651. And a population variance of 6.22% falls within the acceptable statutory allowance. Once again, we're balancing numbers and balancing population. Next, please. 104. looks very similar to map 103, and the next slide will show you what the difference is. Still, Truxton, Hackberry, Peach Springs, Littlefield, North Canyon, and Moccasin voting precincts are moved to District 1, to District 4, but Kingman North is moved from District 4 to District 1, as opposed to Kingman South. The deviation from the population is 3581, and the population variance is 8.40, falls within the acceptable allowance. Next, please. That's the end of it. It was just kind of short and sweet. I just wanted to let you all know what scenarios they came up to being acceptable. And I'm going to just kind of hang out here and see if you want to talk to me. I bet you do.
Oh, just wrapped up. Oh, okay. Questions for Mr. Temperate? Supervisor Bishop.
I do have a couple questions. With this change, there seems to be controversy all over the state of Arizona as to what the effective date is for these maps to go into effect. So maybe that's a question better answered by the deputy county attorney. But I know you told us it was after the...
I can answer that, but...
the next election, and then it was changed to 30 days after this board approves one of the maps. So whoever can answer that question, I'd appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Bishop, so I'm going to make a nuance in the question. The effective date will be 30 days after the time in which this vote of the board becomes effective. And so that could be interpreted as today or perhaps 30 days after the minutes of today's meeting are approved. However, that's a different question than does that effective date affect future elections or past elections? And so there's different cases, different case law, different ways to interpret statute that could really be interpreted both directions on whether it affects past elections. In speaking within my office, it's our belief that the better interpretation, and again, despite the differences, that it could be argued both ways, our office does believe the safer interpretation would be that past elections, meaning the currently sitting supervisors, would not be affected by a map change of today.
Okay, so if map number 3 is voted in and approved by this board, I don't have to move from my precinct to the newly approved map until after the next election.
Mr. Chair, Supervisor Bishop, that would be our office's interpretation. I would note, however, there are conflicting laws or different ways to interpret the laws. So the safest thing to do would be to stay in the district, not having changes. That would be the safest, where there's no interpretation of laws being debated as to, which attorney has the best interpretation. But again, if I had to pick between the two, my advice of the interpretation is that sitting elected officials would not be affected. There's, as I said, conflicting laws, but I think it would be hard to argue that the people that elected the current sitting supervisors, that their votes didn't matter or don't matter. I think that would be one of the arguments that would say sitting elected officials could not be, redistricted out of office.
Okay, so it would be my recommendation that whatever map is approved, that we don't approve map number 3, and then we won't have a possible legal battle on our hands going forward. So that's all the questions I have.
Supervisor Lingenfelter.
Thank you, Chairman Gould. Alan, overall, I think that you did a really good job, you and your consultant. It seems like it went really smoothly. I know you guys had a couple of, or maybe several days of public comments. You went out into the public, you met with people. Most of the comments that I saw from distinct individuals were thank you, which basically says you did a good job, right? And then I saw there was a series of emails that came through one of the supervisor's office with the same arguments, so chain mail, and one of those things said that I couldn't get from District 1 up to the strip area easily and without going through one of the other districts, and that's just not true because we have a plane and I'm there in an hour. So that's false. I do have a question for you and perhaps also the recorder. How far away are we from, I mean, we have midterms coming up, we have several elections coming up. How far away are we from the elections that are coming up?
Well, they're now, as a matter of fact. The midterm elections filing period started this past Saturday, because you can file between 150 days to 120 days prior to the primary election. So they started. We're in it right now. Okay. Now, this 30 days is a really important time frame that takes us into the beginning of April, at the end of the filing period. Okay. The end of the filing period is when everything is kind of stopped. The people in the recorder's office with the voter registration database has to be, at its up and best at that exact moment, because petition challenges can happen. Now, the real key is what we're really looking at for the midterm elections are we're looking at Senate, we're looking at congressional, we're looking at legislative, okay? We're looking at very few county offices, and especially offices that are being affected by what we're doing right now. The Board of Supervisors offices are not up for election for 2 more years. Okay, so really what we come down to it's not the registration, and I mean not registration, the people filing, the cutoffs and the challenge period does not affect what we're talking about for this particular moment. Okay, so we are in the hunt of things. This is really the start of the season. I like to look at it. People, for the candidates, it's been going on for a long time. That's absolutely phenomenal, right? But from my standpoint, the start of the season starts when a petition filing period starts in reality. So now for the next months until August 2nd, with the primary election, it's just going to be all kind of moving around there.
Thank you. I guess my real question to you, and also for voter registration, what sort of information can you give us on the expense and also the logistics? Say if one of the 103 or 104 were adopted, what sort of logistical challenges would there be? What sort of expenses would there be?
Well, I would love to defer that to the recorder, because after it leaves here today, then it gets sent to the recorder's office to make the needed changes, and she would be the one who would have the information on that.
Good morning, Chairman, Board of Supervisors. Last week I would have had a different answer, but basically it's just a matter of moving the voters into the correct areas. It's done really IT. The shape files are dropped into the system, and then we're just going to verify that the voters wind up where they're supposed to be. And so it's more just a lot of analysis. As far as the expense of that, I don't see a great expense.
Great, thank you. I appreciate it.
I have a question.
Supervisor Johnson.
Or it's not really a question. It's, I guess, in opposition to Supervisor Bishop. We have 3 cities, and the smallest city is divided in half for representation. You folks are up here, so you know more about it than I do. It just seems strange that we divide one of the cities in half for voting populations.
Supervisor Lingenfelter.
Thank you, Chairman Gould. I think that this is my own personal opinion, but I think the process was done well. I think the representation is balanced, and I think that if it, for lack of a better term, if it isn't broke, don't fix it. I think that both the population differential and the variance percentage for 101, we still meet we check off all the boxes, and so we adopt 101, then we don't have to worry about any of the potential legal stuff. And people know where they're going to go to vote.
Supervisor Angus.
Thank you, Chairman Gould. I agree with Supervisor Lingenfelter. everything's working well. I haven't heard much, but not my district. My district, there is a map that moves Oatman into District 2. And as though I love those boroughs, I don't really see the need of it. If you look at the map, frankly, I don't even think it belongs in District 4. I think it belongs in District 5, but it belongs more in District 4 than District 2. So I just say, why reinvent the wheel? I support not leaving it everything the way it is.
I've got a couple of request to speak forms. We should probably listen to what the folks have to say. Tom Beller.
Chairman Gold, Mr. Beller had to leave, and before we call people down, I'd like to make a comment.
Sure.
Okay, Supervisor Johnson makes a valid point. Currently, District 1 is the supervisor for half of Kingman, as well as the city and the Arizona Strip. So there could be considered a conflict there because you're kind of weighing the needs of two incorporated cities. And with map 104, that resolves that problem, putting most of Kingman into District 1, where Supervisor Lingenfelter would be their supervisor. The small portion would remain in my District 4, but most of it would be in District 1. And then the other incorporated city in the Arizona Strip would then come into District 4. And honestly, it kind of gives continuity to the landmass. I mean, it's all one big chunk at that time with its own city. And then the Kingman area plus Wickiup then becomes another big chunk with their own supervisor. So that is probably the best choice in my opinion. And with public comments, other than what we're going to hear this morning, the majority of people seem to agree with that have sent in emails and made comments on various media sources. So that's what I wanted to put forward. And this would not take effect until after the election. And I've already gone public and said I am not running for re-election, so I really don't have a fight for myself. It'd be whoever is newly elected in 2024 to go forward with map 104. And the same with Supervisor Lingenfelter. If he chooses to run again, whether or not he gets elected, it would only affect whoever gets elected in District 1 in 2024.
Chairman Gould.
Supervisor Lingenfelter.
If I may respond just to a portion of that, there is no scenario listed that gives Kingman its own supervisor. So even if map 104 was adopted, you're still going to have the District 4 supervisor that's representing two incorporated cities. So that kind of invalidates that argument. I mean, it's either going to be District 1 or District 4 that represents two incorporated cities. People are used to the way it's been now. And again, I don't think that, things are running smoothly. And so I would say just adopt what we have now.
Mr. Chair.
Supervisor Johnson.
I guess some of the concerns that I've heard is either, we're 32,000 people in Kingman, I think, registered population or census population. So if they were in one district, they could elect, at least the majority elect one person to represent Kingman, where when you split them up, they either have the possibility of electing two supervisors and disenfranchising the unincorporated areas, or they get no supervisor and the unincorporated areas run them. That was all.
Supervisor Lingenfelter.
I would say in response to that, and no slight to the city of Kingman if they're watching, but the city of Kingman for many, many years has really done nothing with annexation. And I think that goes to the revenue streams, obviously. But if you look at the Kingman, the census actually has a census designated area, which shows Kingman at about 71,000 if you look at the whole area there. So, I mean, that's really about the size of Casa Grande. So I know that official census numbers, those aren't going to change until the city of Kingman takes a more active and engaged stance on what they're going to do with annexation. But I think if you look at the reality and how many people call Kingman home and call themselves Kingmanite with actually living within the city limits, they come into the city every day to work, to go to the grocery store or to shop. So again, I think that the way it's working now is pretty reflective and it's fair.
Mr. Chair, if I could just chime in.
County Attorney.
I've advised the supervisors that there are different ways to interpret the laws. I have been wrong on occasion in my life. So while I'm confident that we could defend the idea of these maps only occurring or affecting future elected officials and future elections, I could be wrong, right? There's another argument to that side or to that coin and to the laws. And so, you know, if you're looking for pure advice, an attorney, me speaking as an attorney, I would advise take the safest route, you know, avoid possible disputes as to which laws are controlling and which cases are controlling. Just avoid the matter entirely is the safest way to go as advice.
I do not have any more requests to speak. There was only the one.
Mr. Chair, is this open for a motion or?
Yeah.
I would make a motion. Again, thank you, Alan, and your consultant for going through, you know, a very comprehensive process. I'm sure you're glad it's only every 10 years that you have to do it.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm going to make a motion that we adopt map 101.
Second.
You've heard that motion in second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. You guys appear to have it. You have it. So ordered.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alan.
Thank you, Alan.
You're welcome very much, sir. Thank you.
We're back to a public hearing on item 36. Max Wilson.
Good morning, Supervisors, Chairman Gould, Max Wilson, 3469 Hope, Golden Valley, and I'm here to speak in opposition to rezoning these 10-acre parcel that are zoned agricultural to single-family homes to facilitate a large development. I've got some pretty extensive notes here, but I'll try and keep it super, super short. Primarily, there's two concerns here with the community in Golden Valley. One is the pragmatic concerns of the infrastructure and the effects that the population growth would have on the valley. And the second concern is what a lot of other people with other issues have had, is the lifestyle issue and the quality of life that we have in the valley. As far as the pragmatic concerns, water, all right, for a large housing development, this would be the water district's water, and they already have existing struggles with that. The second is the school, because this isn't a retirement community. There's going to be families moving in here. The only existing school in Golden Valley cannot handle that increase as it stands right now. The power, Unisource right now is the provider for the valley. They're already strained. If it's so much as sprinkles in the valley, we lose power. The internet is a big concern for people, especially the type of people that would be moving in here. Right now, the internet providers just can't handle it. We know that our internet provider is no longer taking new customers. Safety is the biggest concern here. Emergency services, public safety, and the issue with Highway 68. That's a whole nother Pandora's box I don't want to open, but that is a big, big concern. When you talk about infrastructure, the representative for the out-of-state developer will talk about the infrastructure plans that they have for their development, but not the effects that it would have on the community and the highway. And then the demands that would come from the new residents, which is already a constant thing in the valley. People wanting supermarkets, people wanting a Walmart, all those kind of issues. And then we come to those are the pragmatic concerns. Then we come to the concerns of the lifestyle. Most of the people in Golden Valley are there for their rural living. We have horses, we have livestock. You know, Supervisor Bishop, you probably don't remember me, but a few years back, I took you and your granddaughter out riding in the canyon. Right now, I can have that experience right from my property. So in the future, all right, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Angelo Priest. Angela, sorry.
That's okay. Good morning, Supervisors and Chairman Gould. Angela Priest, 3469 North Hope Road, Golden Valley, Arizona. And once again, I am here. We went to the Planning and Development Committee, and the one thing that one of the ladies said on the committee was they needed to make room for low-cost housing. And Golden Valley, since we do have 1 acre parcels, and that's what we're asking for, is to keep the property sizes larger. I don't know if you guys have been out here lately, but there is no low-cost housing. Even if they build new low-cost housing, what is that? I guess I'm just here to say not to have large subdivision communities move into the area. Again, emergency services, schools, roads, water. I was just recently at the Pioneer Water District's meeting, and we were planning on putting another like 12-inch pipe to increase water flow. But you know what? With inflation, they have now told us that they have money for most of it, but they won't be able to finish it because now prices have gone up. So there's just a lot of things. This whole morning I've been sitting here and we're talking about droughts, water. We have a candidate, Langston, who says, let's bring water from the Mississippi River. Wait, I don't know. I just love my house, my land. I know that's very selfish, but let's let other people move in that want to enjoy that too. No houses. They want to put houses on 6,000 square feet in an area where we have our horses and our goats and our chickens, and they're gonna say, man, Angie, you smell over there. So, I don't know. I just ask you, please, we can have development in Golden Valley. We know there's gonna be Golden Valley development, but let's keep it with the 1 acre parcels. Let them come in and do that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. Mark Jeske.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Mark Jeske, 6030 West Brook Drive, Golden Valley. I have the same concerns as the other people here. The problem is I don't really know how many homes are we talking about here, and we've heard rumors about curbing and what are we going to do? What are they going to do for septic? And what's going to happen with our taxes? Also, what kind of timeline are we talking about here? Are they going to start next year? Are they going to start next week? How long is it going to take? All that kind of stuff. I have gotten no information on any of that. And a little concerned about the subdivision thing too, because it's pretty nice out there now, but as little homes as we have on our little Brook Drive, it's like a freeway there. And I have 10 head of cattle that we take care of, and a couple pigs and chickens and goats and stuff. And I don't want anybody coming in there complaining that the place stinks because of your animals, you know. Well, you should have thought about that before you moved there, you know. So that's basically what I needed to say, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Travin Pennington.
Hello, Chairman Gould and Board of Supervisors. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Travin Pennington. I live in Kingman, Arizona. I'm here representing the applicant for this project. We propose approximately 250 to the high number would be 300 homes at this location. We've worked diligently with county staff from the very beginning to understand what the existing area plan and general plan was for this area and work our best within the confines of those rules set forward by previous supervisors. So that's our intentions. We lie on the border of both Pioneer and Golden Valley Improvement District, so there's public utilities available there. And there's a rare in Golden Valley, but sewer is one of those things that's required, is like the nucleus of any kind of density. And there is a existing sewer company there at called Sacramento Utilities. So this project would follow all of the existing rules that are laid out in the subdivision rules. We intend to use public utilities, and it's in the part of those rules. It'll have a 6-foot block wall around the perimeter. It will have underground utilities, curbs, sidewalks, gutters, paved roads. The access to this subdivision is to the north is Brooks, to the south is Ship, and both of those roads will be fully paved by the time this subdivision is completed. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. I don't know that you can ask questions at this portion of the meeting, but I'd be happy to in the future answer any questions you have.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else care to testify on item 36? No. I'll give you an opportunity after I close the public hearing. We're not allowed to answer questions or ask questions in the public hearing. So I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing.
Run.
Well, no. Hang on, ma'am. I'll call you to the podium. Let me let the gal in the back come down.
Hello, I hope everybody is doing well today. My name is Chrissy Gregory. I live at 7381 West Agua Fria. I am opposed to this. I have several reasons why. First of all, we were told affordable housing. Affordable housing starts at $250,000. I don't know who can afford that, but I can't. The next is the school infrastructure, K-8. That's all that we have for the one school. If we build 200 plus houses, how is that going to affect our school system? The next thing is the Sacramento Utilities, Inc. I was wondering, I have a lot of questions with that. How much water is this going to use? Because again, we're on well water. How is this going to affect our groundwater? Usually in most areas that have sewers, taxes go to pay for the sewers. So who's going to pay for this? The other thing I was wondering was who's going to maintain it? Again, how's all that going to go? Because all of the other houses in Golden Valley have septic tanks. I don't understand how that's going to work. And I couldn't find any kind of information on this Sacramento Utilities, Inc. The only thing I could find was that it's owned by Dwight L. Zemp, and I couldn't find an email address to contact these people to ask any questions. I couldn't find any phone numbers, nothing. So there you have it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Pennington, you want to take a crack at those questions?
Yes, Sacramento Utilities is the sewer utility. They're permitted by the state of Arizona, and they're operating a public utility there. We currently there's probably close to 100 houses hooked onto that utility, and we're building probably 40, in the process of building 40 more that will be connected to that utility. What was the other question? That was her sewer question.
Yeah, I think it was who was going to pay for the sewer.
So yes, as the homeowners, as we pay a fee of approximately about $2,500 for each one of those homes to be able to hook to that sewer system when we build the home. And then we also pay for all of the extensions and install the sewer lines internally within our subdivisions. And then we give those sewer lines, when they're all done, the right-of-ways go to the county, and those sewer lines will go to Sacramento Utilities. So these individuals should have no fear of having to pay for that sewer, any of those sewer extensions.
I believe that was Oliver. The other was a school district question, and that's not really something.
I can't, we're meeting all of the current county requirements for subdivisions. I think the lady behind me asked if we are doing an environmental study. That's not one of the studies that's required by the county. Some of the studies that are is traffic studies, drainage studies. So that's what we're doing.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am, did that get your question, or do you have an additional question? Thank you.
Chairman Gold.
Supervisor Bishop.
Some of the questions that were asked and not addressed would be, the electrical grid is oversourced. I believe Unisource is building a new KW line that's going to service Golden Valley. So that should not be a problem. As far as the school, I don't have any information on that, but I'm sure if the school is overcrowded, the school district, KUSD, would probably build an addition to the school if this becomes a population problem for elementary school kids. The water question, these homes are on the Sacramento Aquifer, which is the healthiest aquifer that we have in Mojave County, and it's serviced by Pioneer Water, and then there's also the Golden Valley Improvement Districts, but if I'm not mistaken, this would be serviced by Pioneer Water. And as far as internet, I think everybody on this board is promoting broadband and getting more services into the county, plus there's satellite services as well. But the last question or comment was about safety in Highway 68, and I think the controversy right now is that the residents that travel Highway 68 are not happy with the median, but that was put in as a safety concern because of the amount of accidents, and it limits where you can turn off from Highway 68. But I think as more and more people use this, they'll see what the state of Arizona was trying to do to help safety-wide, and it's not so unusual. When I travel other parts of Arizona, I see the same type of medians and communities all over the state of Arizona. So, Travis, I do have a question about affordable housing. Are these homes being promoted or sold as affordable housing?
To answer that question, just kind of maybe the simplest way, these are the cheapest homes that we're selling, that Engel Homes is selling. If you go to our website, you can kind of confirm that. The Shufflers, probably the 09 era, completed a subdivision out in Golden Valley called Ship Estates. It's probably right down the street from many of these people. That subdivision was completed, but only maybe 3 or 4 houses were built in it over the last 15 years. We purchased 145 lots out there maybe within the last 12 months. And so we kind of have a test run of an appetite and what prices can and are. So if you go to our website, but yes, out of all the homes that Engel Homes sells in Mojave County, these ones we're able to introduce these at the cheapest price. And to that point, we've had many of the people that are buying these homes are people that were looking at Fort Mojave, looking at Mojave Valley, even looking in Laughlin, or employees that live in Laughlin or work in Laughlin, but can't afford the prices in Bullhead City and Laughlin. So to that point, yes, I believe we are hitting a price point that is better than what maybe you can find in Kingman.
Okay, so these homes are not being designed for low-income affordable housing. These are the most affordable that Engel has to offer.
These houses range in 12 to 1,700 square feet. This subdivision we're proposing is 6,000 square foot lots. We believe that will be able to help us with the price point. But these houses that we're currently selling them on are 9,000 square foot lots, and the price points are typically between $215 and $250 is what people are purchasing houses in Golden Valley right now.
Well, I can speak from recent experience. There are no affordable housing in Mojave County, because when I thought there was a possibility that I may have to move from my current residence to one in the newly formed district, I checked housing, and it would have been a financial hardship for me, and renting a house or an apartment, the same thing. It's just ridiculous, and it's one of the things this board needs to address is more affordable housing, but not in the context that Engel Homes is saying this is our most affordable subdivision.
And I think the affordable housing is like a really subjective term, but yes, this is our cheapest price point.
Okay, and there's other little subdivisions in Golden Valley that are fairly new, that are quite nice. They have paved roads and modern stick-built houses, and the only complaint that I've received about new construction in Golden Valley is the amount of construction trash that our wonderful wind blows into the neighbors' properties or into vacant lots and everything, but that's the only complaint that I personally have received in my office.
Supervisor Lingenfelter.
Thank you, Chairman Gould. Travis, I just have a couple of questions related to the utilities of this development. You mentioned Sacramento utilities. How far away from the proposed development is their wastewater treatment plant?
Less than a half mile.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And so I don't think it's the installation cost that's more of the problem than, or an issue than the maintenance costs. So, City of Kingman has a municipal system, and if, a line breaks or something like that, they're the ones that go out and maintain that and fix that. So you're confident that the Sacramento utility companies, they have the capacity to take on, I don't know how many client or customers they have right now, but they have the financial wherewithal to.
So one of the ladies up here mentioned a guy by the name of Dwight Zemp, and he is one of the owners or principals of Sacramento Utilities. That group, Dwight and his attorney, they own as many as maybe 5 or 6 utility companies throughout the state of Arizona. This is their business. They've been doing for 40 plus years. This plant was built years ago, had really 5 houses on it for the last 15 years. It's hard to run a utility with 5 houses on a sewer treatment plant. So during that time, they were actually pumping the refuse out of that and hauling it to a site. Now that facility is up and running. The fee to the homeowners, I believe, is $72 a month is what those homeowners end up paying for sewer service out there in Golden Valley.
Great. And their facility, their wastewater treatment plant, has the capacity to absorb another 250 to 300 homes?
Yes, that $2,500 fee that I was talking about that the home builder pays to the utility company, that is for so that they have the monies to create more additional capacity and infrastructure.
Great. And then the potable water supply is going to be Pioneer Water Company, or it's not? They're going to be on some sort of a maintained system.
Yeah, there's Golden Valley Improvement District, which is a county-ran utility company out there, and Pioneer. If we had a preference, we'd probably want to switch from Pioneer to Golden Valley Improvement District. But at this point, yes, we fall within Pioneer Water District, and that's where we would go get water. So just in working with the other ones, it seems like the county is much easier to work with and getting back with us, but yes.
But as an assurance to the future home buyers, there's going to be a system that's maintained by a company that's regulated.
All the utilities will be managed by a public utility company certified by the state of Arizona.
Great, thank you.
What's the preference of the board?
Chairman Gould.
Supervisor Bishop.
I understand the comments that are made by the good people of Golden Valley. I really do, but I think progress is coming to Golden Valley, and we're going to see a lot of growth out there, and I think this is good growth, so I will make a motion to approve.
Second. You've heard that motion in second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. The ayes appear to have it. Do have it. So ordered. I'm going to open the public hearing on item 37. Anyone here to testify on item 37? Hearing none, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing on item 37. What's the pleasure of the board?
Chairman Gould, I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Heard that motion in second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes appear to have it, do have it, so ordered. Item 38, I'm going to open the public hearing on item 38. And we have Brian Ware would like to speak on that.
Brian Ware, property 123-03070. Dear Supervisor, County Manager, County Attorney, and Department Directors, I would like to bring to your attention agenda item 38. Development Services has brought this to you for an update on Mojave County Zoning Ordinance Section 42 Sign Ordinance. Per your agenda item, the Development Services is updating the sign ordinance Section 42 of the Mojave County Zoning Ordinance. The update will assure that signs are regulated by time, manner, and place, not content. As you may be aware, on June 18, 2015, Reed versus Town of Gilbert was a case heard by the Supreme Court of the United States concluding that a sign ordinance could not regulate signs based on the content of the sign. Development Services states to be compliant with the ruling, the department proposes updating the Mojave County sign ordinance to regulate signs solely by time, manner, and place. In the highlighted copy on page 11, under the letter designation H, it states, unclassified signs. The following signs are also prohibited, which, 1, bear or contain statements, words, or pictures of an obscene, pornographic, immoral character, or which contain advertising matter which is untruthful. 3, emit audible sound, odor, or visible matter. The definition of content is the topics or matter treated in a written work, substance, the events, physical detail, and information in a work of art. I stand before you today to request you strike the latter of H1 where it states, or which contain advertising matter which is untruthful. I also request that you strike the latter of 3 where it states visible matter. Any matter or language on a sign is considered content, and per Reed versus Town of Gilbert, a sign ordinance could not regulate signs based on the content of the sign. The definition of matter, physical substance in general, and distinct from mind and spirit. I'm really not sure how this passed planning and zoning without appropriate corrections. However, Development Services, the County Attorney, and Planning and Zoning missed this content. I respectfully request that you strike any and all language that can be construed as an ordinance with regard to content and matter. And meet with the Department of Development Services assurance that signs are not regulated by content or matter. It is clear in H1, in the latter part of the sentence that states, or which contain advertising matter which is untruthful, and in 3, which states visible matter. Passing this today as written prima facie and leaving H1 and 3 in their entirety, I believe, would violate the ruling by the United States Supreme Court that clearly states no sign ordinance can regulate the content of a sign, content being matter whether untruthful or not. I thank you for your time, and I look forward to having this ordinance bear the legal finding of our United States Supreme Court and not cause any further confusion as to the use of any matter or content on any sign located in Mojave County. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else here to testify on item 38? Hearing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. Mr. Walsh, you want to come up and give us a rundown on what this is about?
Chairman Gould, Board of Supervisors, item 36 here is back, if you'll recall, back in July of last year, the board directed staff to take a look at our temporary sign ordinance, basically how we regulated temporary signs in correlation with other cities and that. So staff, and I apologize for the time it took for us to get from there to here, but staff took advantage of that opportunity to look at the ordinance, and we actually went through and cleaned up a number of issues that we had in the ordinance. As was mentioned by the previous speaker, there's been this, Reed versus Gilbert is a case that went to the Supreme Court, City of Gilbert versus Reed, and based on the rulings of that judgment, the law, the attorneys and the cities and the zoning community has done a number of things to try and bring the various statutes into compliance with that. It is continuing to refine itself as that ruling has come out, and as we've received updates from the planning community, we've made those adjustments as well. If it pleases the board, I'd like to have Scott Holtree, my planning manager, go through some of the changes that are being proposed in the sign ordinance.
Proceed.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, thank you for this opportunity.
there was three major changes that we went through when we looked at the sign ordinance. One was the update that the board directed us to look at in allowing for the temporary signs on each property. When we looked into it, we looked into the surrounding property or the surrounding jurisdictions, Kingman, Havasu, Bullhead, other counties in the area. And we were able to find that they do allow for the A-frame signs, the banners, the pennants. So Mojave County, we entered into our temporary signs, the ability to have a 24 square feet of those temporary signs on each property, as similarly allowed in other jurisdictions like Kingman and Havasu. The other thing that we looked at was the simplicity of the ordinance. It's quite long and there's quite a bit of information in there. So we tried to simplify things, eliminating a lot of the wording and language in there that isn't necessary. One quick example would be, well, on building signs, the ability to allow for a building sign. We previously required the distance from the public right-of-way to your property, and that would determine the size of sign that you would be allowed to have. We eliminated all that and just went with a flat 25% per building. And like I mentioned before, the third thing was the updating our ordinance to be in compliance with the court case with the town of Gilbert versus Reed, eliminating any language or content that referred to the content of the sign and how we regulated it. One of the biggest changes that came about with that was billboards and how we regulate billboards. Currently, a billboard is defined as an off-premise sign, so you have to essentially read the sign to determine whether or not it is on-premise or off-premise. We tried to eliminate that so that it is just a billboard, a larger sign that goes up to a certain square footage, only allowed along certain highways and freeways within Mojave County with the proper zoning and with a special use permit. When staff looked into it, we realized that we didn't really quite care what was being advertised on the sign, but how the sign was being presented in the time, manner, or place. Those are the updates, and I am happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Questions for Mr. Holtry? I've got one for you.
Okay.
So do people have to get a permit for a sign that's less than 24 square feet?
Mr. Chairman, no. The way that we have written it in there is that it falls under the exempt signs. We try to keep it as simple as possible so that it's a temporary sign that anybody can have on their property up to 24 square feet. One of the caveats that we did put in there was that it couldn't obstruct side distance for traffic, as well as any required parking or be placed in any public right-of-way. There are also other provisions. If it's like a strip mall where there's multiple businesses, then there is a greater allowance, because 24 square feet for that one property probably wouldn't suffice for the banners or A-frames that each individual business would like to present. So we did put a provision in for that as well.
I had another question, but I forgot what it was. I know what it is. What's temporary mean?
Temporary means that it didn't require a building permit, essentially. If you're placing a sign on the building itself, or we do allow for a freestanding sign for each property, those require that sign permit. Temporary, we did not put a time frame for the temporary, mainly because it's difficult to regulate. And the other thing would be is if you put a banner for, say we put a time frame for 90 days, and they advertise for 90 days with that banner and then take it down and then come with another banner, then they got another 90 days to place that banner. So we didn't really see the need for that. We are open to that if that's the board's direction that they would like to go. We could put a time frame on the temporary.
Thank you, sir. Supervisor Johnson, you had a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question was along the same lines on this temporary. Why are we even doing this if we're not going to enforce anything or have a time limit? What do we care?
As Mr. Chair, Supervisor Johnson, that's correct. Previously, we were regulating that we didn't allow for the A-frames. We didn't allow for the banners. The direction that we received from the board is that we wanted to allow for these types of banners, but not excessively. So that's why we went with the 24 square feet that's allowed in other jurisdictions nearby, but then didn't necessarily see the need for a time frame if we're going to allow them regardless, or if they could continue to keep placing the sign after the 90 days.
So we're just saying 24 square foot and then do whatever you want.
Correct. Within the means that they could not place it in a sight distance to view or to obscure view for traffic, couldn't place it in the public right of way or in any required parking.
Okay. The speaker that spoke on this was talking about content. Do we have something in there with content that's going to cause us problems?
I believe he was speaking towards one of our prohibited items. Yes, the under H1 and 3.
Mr. Chair, Supervisor, if I may, on the bottom of page 10, there's two references to it, but the bottom of page 10, following signs are prohibited which bear or contain statements, words, or pictures of an obscene, pornographic, immoral character, or which contain advertising matter which is untruthful. So that same phrase is also, I think, on page 22.
I'd have to agree. I don't think we can control truthfulness, or I don't even think there's pornography anymore in the world, is there?
Chairman Gould, Supervisor Johnson, that is a good question. That's probably something we can revisit with the attorney's office as far as how far. I mean, yeah, I don't have an answer for you at this point.
Mr. Chair.
Tyler.
Supervisor Johnson, the Gilbert case, these sign cases, what we're talking about is free speech, right? This is a free speech case. The Gilbert case was specifically about religion, a pastor advertising for his church, and can the city, the town of Gilbert, force him to remove his signs with a shorter period of time than other signs, you know, other non-religious signs. So that was the Gilbert case. When we talk about free speech, what the case law gets into is regulating the time, place, manner, the content of speech. And again, getting back to free speech, certain types of speech are not protected. Untruthful communication, that's not protected speech. Slander, that's not protected speech. Pornographic speech has been determined to be free speech in some areas, but not in others. Billboards in certain communities can be regulated. You know, you can't put a pornographic billboard next to a church, next to a school, next to a park. And so these are areas of the law where governments are allowed to regulate the content more so than perhaps in the Gilbert case is a great contrast, right? This is a church advertising as opposed to pornographic advertising or untruthful advertising. You know, you can't advertise, you know, come to my business, I'm selling snow cones for $2. You get to the business and now they're $4, right? That's untruthful communication that can be regulated differently than truthful communication.
I guess the problem I have with that analogy is Mr. Walsh going to be checking down the price of snow cones? I mean, everybody puts advertisements up, and you know, whether they want to suck you in with a false leader or something. Are we the police of the of telling a lie. I don't know if we have the authority or would even get involved in that. I mean, that's going to be a rabbit hole to go down that I don't think I want to go down. We can give it to Denise Burley. She seems to be good with those things.
Mr. Chair, Supervisor, I think that's a great idea, is to give it to the Department of Health. And I'm joking. There's a state agency that certainly regulates the advertisements. That's the Department of Weights and Measures. Certainly that wouldn't be the Department of Environmental Services enforcing that sort of thing. But that's where, as you're saying, perhaps that's an area to look at this ordinance. Do you want to include the word truthful? The fact that it's in there, and I'm discussing this, is just to make the point of untruthful communication is not protected by the free speech areas, which was that Town of Gilbert case, and perhaps the other things that the county, the attorney's office, as well as environmental services looked at. That's a phrase that is not protected speech. So if the Board of Supervisors wants to take that out, give that direction, that's certainly something that can be allowed and considered.
Right, and I understand we're talking about the truthfulness, but we have in this boardroom where people come in and use profanity and make obscene gestures, and we seem to allow that here. So I don't know why I'm going to be the police of somebody's business, but it's up to the board.
Chairman Gould.
Supervisor Angus.
Yeah, I have an issue with that too. You know, who decides what's truthful and untruthful? Mark Zuckerberg's definition of truthful and mine are different, right? And I have a big problem with that. I think it shouldn't be. I mean, there are obviously things, but how would that even be? So somebody would make a complaint saying that this guy's advertising snow cones, you know, for $2, but they're like $5. I mean, we don't go around, you know, checking on these things. A complaint would have to be made.
Chairman Gould, Supervisor Angus, that's correct. We don't typically, we don't monitor what's being advertised and then go double check and make sure that's
Well, we haven't in the past, but if you have wording like this, it could be open when there is somebody who, you know, wants to make a big deal. So I would like just to take that out or reword it where, you know, it would have to be, I don't know, whatever you have to do. Now, when it comes to obscene and pornographic and immoral characters. So if you drive around Mojave County, there are banners and flags and signs all over that say FJB spelled out. I know it bothers some people, but we allow that. That is nothing. So if somebody came to you and said, my neighbor has this sign out there, or this business has this sign out there, what would you do?
That's Chairman Gould, Supervisor Angus, that's a great question. We've not encountered that. We've not had basically a situation where we've gone after that and you know, looked into those types of things. So
that particular statement is political free speech. It's protected.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not, even though some people, I think a lot of people would find it obscene and pornographic, I mean, obscene and distasteful, doesn't matter. And so it would have to be a very narrow definition for me of that untruthful, or else I think that it could spin into something, especially in the climate we're in, into something that we do not want to get involved in.
Mr. Chair?
Supervisor Johnson.
Is it possible that this can be continued to address that and bring it back to us so the board doesn't have to?
Chairman Gould, Supervisor Johnson, absolutely. We'd be happy to look at this and bring it back.
If there's no further questions, I'd make a motion to continue for 30 days or yeah.
Second for discussion.
You've heard that motion and second. Is there any discussion?
Chairman Gould?
Tim, I would agree that Mojave County doesn't ever want to put itself in a position of proclaiming itself to be the arbiter of truth. That's not really the government's function. But overall, I think that you guys have done a good job. I think that these are positive changes for our private business community to not have to, you know, mess with the government more than they have to. So I'm a big favor of that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Heard that motion. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Ayes appear to have it. Do have it. So ordered. Is this still a public hearing?
There's regular.
Is it?
Just missed that on the back. There we go.
Item 39. No one cares to testify? What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chair, this is the one we're on.
Supervisor Johnson? 39.
39, right? The love of pause. All right. Everybody's probably seen the additional backup that was provided to us by the county manager and staff. I think somebody's trying to hoodwink us here. Obviously, the staff says they've met with a person and said, hey, you're doing too many events and you need to rezone your property. If you look at the application for the special event application, they're talking about going to have constant arrivals 24 hours a day for the time. They're going to have general admission fees and camping fees. They're claiming that it's only going to be adults only coming in here. They're running alcohol sales for 16 hours a day for 3 days. They talk about, well, you know, we'll have porta potties. I don't see where we have a requirement. I don't know if we can make a requirement, but they have a quote for 8 porta potties. Whether they're going to get 8 or not, I don't know. They've now decided they're going to fence in the area for drinking, where before it was going to use the whole property. They're having obviously a band there, talking about moderate noise throughout the event. The insurance, I'm not sure, maybe Mr. Walsh, did you handle this? When we're talking about insurance for this event, this is just an extension of a homeowner's policy. They've got adults and alcohol, motorcycles, and guys using this homeowner's policy to...
Chairman Gould,
okay with us.
Supervisor Johnson, at this point, this would just be the initial application that we've received. We would route this through risk and emergency management to get their take on the insurance part of it. I would like to, following the meeting our last meeting where this was initially discussed, I did speak with the county attorney's office, and while the board has delegated authority to staff to oversee events of 250 or less. That is a board's decision, and at any point, if the board would like, they can pull that ability to review the application for events less than 250 back to the board for review and approval. Where this event, where the applicant has stated that they'd be having less than the 250, I think they estimated about 200 people at one point, that would fall under the administrative review. However, the board does have the ability to pull this event back and actually look at the event to review and decide whether or not this is an event that the board would like to have occur in Mojave County. With regards to the insurance, definitely we'll be working with, with emergency management and risk to determine whether the insurance that they provided is adequate or if they would need to improve that.
Thank you. That's all. I just think we're trying to be rookie dude here. Says it's for tourism and Route 66. I see a band and 16-hour-a-day alcohol sales and adults only. And I don't know that the Love of Pause, who's applying for this liquor license, is going to be able to staff something for 16 hours a day selling alcohol. That's a tough road to go. I don't see the number of security that's supposed to be here either. That's all. I'm done talking about it.
Further questions for Mr. Walsh?
No questions for Mr.
Supervisor
Walsh,
Bishop.
but I'm leaning toward approving this at this time, but going forward and during the process, let's try to educate the love of pause and find out exactly what their future plans are, whether or not they're going to be a commercial fundraiser location, and if so, what requirements or what kind of rezoning they might need to do. Is that possible?
Chairman Gould, Supervisor Bishop, just a point of clarification. Absolutely, we can speak with the love of pause and provide some information to them. In this specific scenario, it's kind of a unique scenario in that the applicant for the liquor license is not the event organizer. The event organizer is the Saddle Sore Ranch, and for the love of pause is, to my understanding, just applying to be a vendor at this event. So they're applying for this liquor license to be able to sell alcohol at this event. That they're not organizing the event; they're only a proposed vendor for the event.
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Supervisor Johnson.
Just kidding you about not talking anymore. No, you bring up a good point, Supervisor Bishop. This is just an outfit that decided to make money by having an event and got a nonprofit to apply for the liquor license. Now, these nonprofits have to understand that the liability is on them if something goes wrong with alcohol, if somebody leaves the event with being overserved or anything else, and a lot of them don't because they think it's going to be a good money maker for them. And I know nothing about this event, but I'm guessing the event said, with this amount of hours, they said, oh, don't worry, we'll sell the alcohol, we'll do all that. All you have to do is get the liquor license, which is not the way it's supposed to run. And it's supposed to be 25% of gross that they're supposed to get, which most of these places don't get. I don't know if we still have them reporting back to us, but the board tried to get them to say, we want to see that our nonprofits are receiving their monies, because say $100,000 comes in and they say, well, it costs us $85,000. There was only 15,000 profit. We're giving you $1,000. A lot of nonprofits have been screwed over the years on this. Mm-hmm. Maybe this is the last time.
Chairman Gould. I think you're right. That's why I threw the education part in there to make sure they're aware.
Madam Clerk.
Chairman Gould, in response to Supervisor Johnson's question, we really had no way to make them report back to us because we don't actually issue the license. Any complaints from the nonprofit would have to go to ADLLC and they would have to follow up on that. So we while it's a good idea and we'd like to see it, we can't make them, because while we submit that we either approve or disapprove of this license being issued, ultimately it's up to the state whether they issue it or not. And then it's up to the state for any follow-up, or, if they go out and say, hey, you can't do this or you can do that. So it's kind of, this process is a little odd because it comes to us and they ask us to give a recommendation, but ultimately they do what they want at the state.
Further discussion?
Chairman Gould.
Supervisor Bishop.
I will make a motion that we approve and then outside of the motion, I think we should try to educate this nonprofit.
Second for discussion. I have one more question. So when it does come to liability, that weekend is going to be a difficult weekend. There's a lot going on and a lot of drinking. So if someone is overserved, who ultimately is responsible if something terrible should happen?
Chairman Gould, Supervisor Angus, the liquor law and through ADLLC, they make it very clear, especially if you go through any of their training, their basic training, they put out there, ultimately the server can be held responsible. If you come up to me and I'm serving alcohol and you're obviously intoxicated, or maybe you've been up to me in the last 2 hours and you've bought 6 beers, obviously I should be aware that you're intoxicated. At that point, you can be held responsible if you don't stop serving. You can be held responsible. it's kind of difficult at a special event for this, but like, say I'm in an establishment, and you come into my bar and I serve you to the point of intoxication. Ultimately, it's my responsibility to say, hey, you know, you need to call an Uber,
So
you need to call
is that the love of pause, or is that the event organizer?
ultimately would be the Love of Pause, because they will be that license holder. So the nonprofit is the person who applies for this license. And ultimately, they are responsible for the distribution of the alcohol.
And they obviously have to have a set amount of insurance to...
Actually, ADLLC doesn't require insurance.
Seriously?
No, they do not. When you get a special event license through ADLLC, there's a packet you print, so they have like the rules and the regulations, and oh, you shouldn't serve this, and you can only serve so much at a time, right. So I can't give you like 6 beers at a time kind of thing to walk away with. It's a certain amount of alcohol, but there is no license that requires for special event to have insurance, no. Not for the alcohol distribution itself, no. For special events.
So is there any way this would come back to the county? If God forbid, something were to happen?
Not that I'm aware of, because ultimately it is not the county issuing the license.
All right, thanks.
Chairman Gould, if I might.
Supervisor Walsh.
Just to make sure it's clear, at this point, the motion and the second is for the liquor license only. If the board would like to have this item brought back to them for approval of the event itself, Development Services would be happy to bring it back. We would just like that direction. At this point, the way it stands with the application, it's an administrative review. We would go through it. As long as they met all of our requirements and met the requirements of the various stakeholders, we would issue the approval for it.
Anyone interested in bringing it back for approval? Okay. You've heard that motion. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay.
Nay.
The ayes appear to have it. Do have it. So ordered. Item 40. Mr. Palmer.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, I think I pulled this off the agenda last time.
Okay. Supervisor Johnson.
I see from the backup where staff has gone through and looked at the lease, came up with a recommendation. Stop talking to the mayor of Lake Havasu. Inform me that we have an agreement with them as we have space rented inside the police station for our county attorneys. And that agreement has been that we would do 90 cents a square foot, and that they charge, I believe, $1.32, which includes cleanup, electricity, and the sundries that go along with it. So I would make a motion that we change our contract for the rental, and to keep it even, we would just make it the same $1.32 that the city of Lake Havasu charges us. County manager could probably step in if I'm off on the numbers or anything, but that would be my motion.
Second.
You had a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes appear to have it. Do have it. So ordered. Number 42, Supervisor Langenfelter.
Thank you, Chairman Gould. Maybe Tammy, could you come to the podium, please? This is something I'm following up on. County manager, our economic development director, and I had a discussion, I believe, on this topic back in February of 2021. And the concern is, and it's not to pick on anybody, but when you go onto our website for economic development, I think that's really the public face of our economic development function in Mojave County. It's available, 24/7, 365. It's a lot of times the first contact that the site selectors, the business owners, anybody else that is interested in possibly doing business in Mojave County sees. And I think that it's just, it makes it look like we don't take economic development as very serious when we have significantly outdated information on the site. And what I'm referring to, just by going through the site as it stands right now, under the data center, there are some economic development council spreadsheets, which I believe are meant for site selectors, businesses to do an apples to apples comparison with other communities that they're potentially looking at. I believe those should be updated annually, or at least semi-annually, or every other year. But if you look at the sheet for taxation, the sheet for utilities, the sheet for government elected officials, a lot of those sheets are outdated. The tax and utilities information, the government elected officials are from 2015, 2016. And there's also a number of broken links on the site, which I would hope that we would be able to correct. So that's really the first part of this item, is just to see what we can do to make sure that we have the most current and up-to-date data. And I think that we should pride ourselves in having the most comprehensive collection of data, economic development data in the county. So I think a lot of times companies, site selectors, they go to the region first, they reach out to the county, and then maybe they'll dial down on one of the cities within the county. So I think it's just important for us to have current and updated information on our site, at least annually, so we can talk about that. And then the second part is, I don't see anywhere on our site where we have any sort of resident business retention and expansion program to retain and to grow our current businesses that are already a part of Mojave County. I believe that's more important than attraction of businesses that aren't here. It's certainly less expensive to partner with our current businesses that are here to help them grow. So I'm really just looking to see what the plan is as far as Mojave County resident business retention and expansion as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Excuse me, sorry. Chairman Gould, supervisors. This has been a challenge since I've been here. In 2020, 2020, I actually was working with a web developer that was going in back through the back office of this website, making changes, struggling to find places to make changes, come back, and they were still the same on the front office and the front page when you came. So we've contacted since then I've had staff, and I put staff over this project, and staff has contacted the web developer. I'll make changes. A month later, 2 months later, it's right back to where it was. An example specifically is the calendar that's there. We completely took the calendar off the website because the information on the calendar, we have no control where it comes from or what's happened or where the information, who's even putting the information on there. So we've taken it completely off the website. 2 months later, 3 months later, it's back on. It's gone back and forth. And so in the process, I've been working with our IT department, and we are going to move it over. But my staff was a little slow we had to rewrite everything that was on the web page so that it would come out positive and looking different. And they've been working on it, but with staff changes and different things, it's been a little slower than expected this year on the IT side as well as on my side. So we're getting ready to move that over. I don't have a date yet, but hopefully within about 4 to 6 weeks, we'll have a new website that the county will be on the county website. In the process, that's also going to be saving us just under $10,000 a year. So
With regard to the private provider that you're working with right now, can't you just call them and get the login and the password to go into the back end of the website to do the changes yourself?
We've done that, and we worked with them. They've made changes, and it still comes back.
What I'm asking is, can you make the changes?
I have made the changes with the developer as well as without. And we have the passwords. We've done that, but they still show back up. Some of the changes we have not been able to make at all. So it's just time to just get a new website and start over. And like I said, in the process, it's going to save the county money.
What about the the spreadsheets on the data center. Is there anything that we can do there? I mean, I think that it would even be better just to take those off right now. If you have the login and the password for the site to get to the backward, you can't take them off?
So what we have decided with the new website is anything that we can have links to, such as a city, rather than trying to go up and update who the new mayors are or what any new information, we're just going to have links to those. Anything specific for data from the census, we will update yearly, and we've got that ready to go already. From the 2020 census, we don't have the 2021 numbers out yet, but we'll continue to do that on a yearly basis.
So right now, there's really no other place that I am aware of than the county's website where a business or a site selector can go and they can download a sheet where they can see all of the tax rates of both the unincorporated areas, the incorporated areas. Same with the utility rates. You know, I think that it's a pretty powerful benefit for Mojave County as far as being able to be that clearinghouse.
So one of the things we do, obviously, is they end up contacting me, and I can, or other organizations, departments in the county, and we can give them that information. The other thing is this particular site has very, very little traffic. I have not been keeping track on a weekly basis, but I know that 3 weeks ago we had 66 visits from Mojave County alone. And we had one visit that week alone from an educational institution. We do not get a lot of traffic to that site, and it's probably because it's not updated. And so it doesn't come up specifically to the top of the list when people start looking for it. They do call the county, they call my number, and I do give information out all the time to different developers and the information.
My concern is that not everybody is going to call.
And I understand that, but right now, until we can get the new site, this is what we have. We've spent hours on this website, and it's still where it's at.
I guess I'd look to the county manager to ask, what sort of a timeline can we look at? I mean, economic development is, literally where we get all the funds to do everything else that the county does. So I guess I'm just a little confused why this isn't a priority right now.
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Linkenfelter, clearly we've inherited a website that does not have the backbone or the backup or written in such a way that would be user-friendly. We have, as you heard, attempted to fix it, either by asking them to do it or asking them for access for us to make the changes. Neither has worked. With that said, we're proposing to you, the board, we see absolutely no value in keeping it and incurring a single dollar on it, let alone whatever it is that we're paying for it. So we will terminate it. We intend to stand one up on our own, that we can be accountable for it, we can be responsible for it. I'm hearing Tammy say it's 4 to 6 weeks away. We'll do our very best. It takes both economic development and IT to, coordinate. We will make it a priority. We'll do our very best to get it up and running, and then perhaps do a demo or make you aware of it, just like we did with the ARPA dashboard, just to kind of show you where we're at. And then it will be under our jurisdiction where we can improve it, change it, ensure that it is up to par with what the board expectations are. But honestly, it's just not a good product to work with, and we don't see a value in continuing with it. It's just the effort to bring it in-house and make it what we want it to be.
Great. I appreciate hearing that. I know that, as I mentioned, and I led off with, we had this discussion in my office a year ago, and nothing has really changed. So that's why I bring it up, because I do think it's important for us to, really communicate that we do take economic development seriously. I know we do. So I appreciate that it's going to get taken care of.
And Chairman Gould and Supervisor Linkenfelter, please understand, it's really not an excuse, but we did hire an individual that came to us with high hopes and expectations to help us specifically with the business retention and expansion program. We no longer have that individual. So it was a two-person department until about December, and now it's a one-person department consisting of Tammy. So I take a deep breath, and it's painful to say those things to you. There is no excuse, but we're doing the best with what we have, and this is what we have. So IT will step up and help us with it, and we're trying to recruit in such a way that we can bring somebody on board who either has the skill set or can be trained, but we truly are shorthanded. And I wanted you to be aware of that, just so you know it's not for lack of trying or lack of effort.
Appreciate it. I guess my last question would be both to you and to Director Ursenbach. How important do you think business retention for our resident business retention expansion is? And really, what is the plan then? I recognizing that you're short-staffed with just a department of one. You know, what are your professional thoughts on the importance of resident business retention and expansion, and what's the plan?
Well, I'll say this, the individual that we had was local, had good connections locally, and I'm going to say this and turn it over to Tammy. She came on board, there was a vision and an expectation that her entire focus would be on business retention and expansion. So Tammy, I'd like you to perhaps drill down a little bit further as to what you laid out for the person no longer with us, and how we can turn that around and reestablish that in a better and more effective way.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I have had a person, as a staff person, finally it took us a while to get somebody hired. Had a couple of them that have come and gone because of different circumstances. Unfortunately, but business retention and expansion, when I came on board, was number one, realizing that you've got to help the local businesses. As you bring in new businesses, you don't want, number one, you don't want them to feel that they're not important, but number two, most of the new business, of the new growth usually comes from our local businesses. So when I came on board in January of 2019, that was my first focus, to go out and meet with some of the businesses. But new business coming in was coming so quickly that that's where I've spent most of my time and my energy. Since then, in hiring somebody, that was their focus again, but they've had a hard time getting into some of the incorporated cities, which is where most of our businesses are. And in fact, one city, I have emails recently have said, we would rather you not come into our city. And so because of that, they want to take care of their own business retention and expansion. That gives us the county, which we're still focusing on. I'm still up in Colorado City and Centennial Park, and we're still all over. But these particular individuals are gone. Since they've been gone, I am coming up with a new strategy. That is what I would have done and what I have done in other areas, where I include more of the community, and that's still taking time to create and develop. So it's not, I'm not ready to present on that yet, but the hope is that we'll have business retention expansion in every community, unincorporated as well as incorporated, and we'll get the cities to be on board with this new plan. But like I said, it's going to take a little time to develop.
Do you think some sort of a business retention expansion program will be included in the next fiscal year? I mean, we're in budget right now. When are you going to be launching this program?
Do you mean as finance, I mean, funding to be able to support it, or do you mean as...
I mean about your department initiatives.
So my department initiative is, I don't have one specifically for BRNE, but I've already got funding in my budget for BRNE.
Okay.
So, yeah, no new initiatives at this time, but I'm working with another department so that we can make this happen before before the new budget year, hopefully.
Great.
And it'll be in place.
I appreciate it. And just to give an example to those that maybe aren't familiar with business retention expansion, District 1 recently had a roundtable out at the Airport Industrial Park in Kingman with Kingman and Mojave Manufacturing Association. We had a lot of the plant managers come and speak directly about some of the nuances surrounding the supply chain crisis that were then passed up the line to those that are in elected positions to get some relief. So, I mean, there is some value in that, and you can only get that if you're talking to the businesses. So I appreciate it.
That's correct. And I understand that. That's very correct. And that is one of my high priorities.
Thank you.
Chairman Gould.
Supervisor Bishop.
Tammy, thank you for tolerating this website. I don't know where in our history this came from, but obviously we hired a company that was inadequate, and I thank you for trying to work with them, but I'm very happy to hear that we're starting our own website so that you can manage it yourself and you don't have to go back and forth with somebody we pay to be our webmaster on this. So can you tell me how far back we hired this company?
I don't know that. That was long before my time.
Okay. And it was
probably 2010. I don't know. There's information back 2010, 2011. I don't know how long we've had this website.
Okay, well, kudos to you for doing what you can and limping along, and I hope IT can help you as much as possible get this new one started. Yeah, I'm just appalled. I assume that we've been paying an annual fee for this website.
Yeah.
How much is that?
So we have two. We have an annual fee, and I don't have that in front of me, I'm sorry, $3,000, $4,000 for the website itself. And then we have another organization that keeps the data updated, the census data, some other information. They also have, like the MLS on there, some link that they're going to start charging more, but that is $5,400 a year. And they want to raise it an additional $2,400 a year to keep the locations on there from the MLS. I have had a problem where people will go to an MLS site and then they say, oh, well, you don't have anything in Mojave County, so they don't call. And I find that out 2 or 3 months after they've decided to go somewhere else. And we've just talked, I've found them in passing and we've talked about that. For me, I would rather not have that particular link on there because then I can talk to them about property that's not even listed on the MLS that we know of that's coming up, that's available, but the the property owners don't want it listed. So then we don't lose the people. Not only that, there's other options such as I have companies that are willing to build to suit and lease out to companies that's not going to be on the MLS. We can talk about it, but I can't show preference from one company over another by putting that on the website either. So trying to be as transparent but as fair as I can to everyone.
Okay, well, I'm certainly glad I didn't vote to hire this company, and I'm disappointed to hear that we have at least one city that's not working well with you because, obviously you are very easy to work with, and I think all the cities should be working together with the county to make our county the best it can possibly be in economic development and bringing business and jobs to our citizens. Thank you. Thank you.
Supervisor Lingenfelter.
Thank you, Chairman Gould. I'd like to just add a little bit of historical context to Supervisor Bishop's comments. So back in 2010, the county went through a significant reorganization, and as a part of that, economic development went from a division to a full-blown department. They didn't have a website. So at that point, they won a $50,000 grant from the state of Arizona governor's office, and they hired a company by the name of Atlas Advertising out of Denver, Colorado, and they created the first economic development website. After that, I think in 2015, and I served as a director from 2010 to a little past 2012, somewhere around 2015, the county stepped away from Atlas Advertising, who we had initially hired a different company, which I don't know who they are, but they're clearly the one that's dropping the ball, and I'm glad to hear that it's coming in-house. Thank you.
Thank you.
We've got a request to speak from Chris Redarty.
I'm Chris Redarty, Kingman. Thomas Jefferson once asked, who will govern the governors? There's only one force in the nation.
Mr. Chair, what's this have to do with the website?
Mr. Redarty, is this regarding the agenda
Yes,
item? Okay.
it is. May I start over?
You can probably continue where you left off.
Thank you. Thomas Jefferson once asked, who will govern the governors? There is only one force in the nation that can be depended upon to keep government pure and the governors honest, and that is the people themselves. Jefferson's thoughtful reflection leads me to item agenda 42, presented by Supervisor Lingenfelter. In his memo, he writes, the Mojave County Economic Development website is long overdue for an overhaul to bring it to current standards so as to attract business development to our area. Sounds innocuous enough in the interest of putting our best foot forward to a worldwide audience. That, however, includes, among others, quote, economic development for stakeholder groups. Excuse me, not sure who or what these groups are, but my radar is pinging. My ongoing investigation revealed Mr. Lingenfelter is himself the managing member of One Intermountain West Solutions, LLC, described on its website as, quote, an Arizona-based company that specializes in providing custom-tailored professional economic development, project management, procurement, contract, and grant administration services towards building resilient communities, which provide sustainability for all. It goes on to say, under the heading, what we do, cities, towns, and neighborhoods are interdisciplinary systems, and striving to make them healthy, sustainable, and strong places to live, work, and play is a complex enterprise. There is no one-size-fits-all solution. IWS is committed to doing what we do best, creating and adding measurable value to communities and projects to build capacity where all boats rise. Well, I'm certainly no Einstein. However, I may have unearthed, at the very least, a conflict of interest, and at worst, a stealth move into Mojave County by the International Council for Local Environmental Initiatives, the ICLEI, Local Governments for Sustainability, a global UN agenda I read about at the February 22 call to the public. In either case, I hope I'm wrong, and I would gladly extend apologies to Mr. Lingenfelter. But in the interest of governing the governors as ordered by Jefferson himself, I present this for your consideration. And I urge you to steer clear of any projects and all projects, including Water Now Alliance and the ICLEI, bent on promoting the un-American tyrannical move toward an eventual globalist takeover. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Senator Lingenfelter, or Supervisor Lingenfelter.
Thank you, Chairman. To assure the Speaker, I have absolutely no desire in my elected position to push any sort of a one world anything. I'm certainly a steward and champion, or I like to try to be a steward and champion of our water, both our groundwater and our Colorado River water. My economic development consulting work has nothing to do with updating the county's website. The stakeholders I was talking about would be, for instance, all of the chambers of commerce in our county, all of our private industries in our county, the utility companies, site selectors. These are typical stakeholders. Also the governments that Tammy partners with. Arizona First, Workforce Development, things like that. These are the typical economic development stakeholders, but you have no reason to fear anything from me in my private consulting work trying to push some sort of a one world anything. So that's all. I'll stop it. Thanks.
So do we need to take any action on 47?
No action.
No action, thank you. Number 43, Supervisor Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We've discussed this and passed it on to get information. I would make a motion to move the clerk of the board to range 29, step 4, 97,676, 80 cents plus a dollar raise approved by the board November 1st, 21, which would come to 99,756 and 80 cents, with the schedule raise of a dollar coming in July 2nd of 2022.
Chairman Gould?
Supervisor Angus.
I thought we voted already on,
They wanted the range set.
oh, okay.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Okay, got it.
Chairman Gold.
Supervisor Bishop.
Second.
You've heard that motion in second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes appear to have it, do have it, so ordered. Number 44, Supervisor Bishop.
Yes, number 44 and 45 are ARPA projects for the remote communities of White Hills and Dolan Springs. It's to provide redundancy to water system operations. And I believe they were both doing work to construct new wells to provide clean drinking water for their residents. And it's within the ARPA guidelines and has been approved by the county attorney's office. So I will make a motion that item number 44 be approved as submitted.
Second.
You've heard that motion in second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes appear to have it, do have it, so ordered. Item 45, Supervisor Bishop.
Chairman Gold, the same information, same motion to approve as submitted.
Same second.
You've heard that motion in second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes appear to have it, do have it, so ordered. Item 46. I think this is Supervisor Johnson, but Mr. Walsh is making his way down here. Patillo. Supervisor Johnson, we're on 46.
Right. We decided with any change, Mr. Walsh, or are we just going to go about doing whatever you feel like doing?
Chairman Gould, Supervisor Johnson, we appreciate the opportunity. We've actually looked into our practices and the policies that we've had in place. As the board will recall, in fiscal year 2020, 2021, the board approved moving a portion of the environmental quality that was being overseen by environmental health to environmental quality in development services. Previously, those duties were split. Any type of surfacing effluent was handled by environmental health, while subsurface effluent was handled by environmental quality. In accepting those new duties, environmental quality basically dealt with those issues based on existing policies that we had in place. In reviewing the policies that we have and some of the items that have been brought to light with this Miracle View condominiums issue, we've found areas for improvement. We are working on a draft policy and procedures for addressing such issues, and we'll bring that back to the board for review and approval once complete. We have a draft in place right now, but we need to work with the attorney's office to make sure everything looks good on their end and make sure that everything is workable. So our plan is to bring back a policy and procedures for the board's approval once complete.
Thank you. There's no action needed.
Any questions for Mr. Walsh? Hearing none, thank you, sir. Anything else for the good of the order? If not, we're adjourned.